Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. Today is June 4th, 2025. I am calling our meeting to order at 5:36 p.m. We have 3 trustees present in person at the Ross Valley School District office at 100 Shaw Drive in San Anselmo. Myself, Rachel Litwack, Shelly Hamilton, and Daniel Cassidy. Chris Landels-Cobb is on her way. So she'll be arriving shortly. We also have cabinet members present. We have Superintendent Tyler Graff, Eric Sable, and Chris Carson. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, and the link is live on our website and the agenda. There will be a 60-second delay between the meeting and the YouTube live stream. An audio recording of the meeting will be made available to the public on our district website within 72 hours following the meeting. And with that, I will
Public here.
Yeah, and there is no comment here for public comment. So I'm moving on to item B, closed session. I'm going to identify the closed session topics. We have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D2 or 3, special education program dispute, 3 cases, student SSIDs number 672-897-8430, number 9416-491-356, and number 895-631-0387. And without any public here for public comment, I will move to closed session at 5:37 p.m. All right, welcome back. It is 6:10 and I am returning us from our recess to closed session. I'm going to report out on closed session. At 5:46, Trustee Landels-Cobb returned to our closed session, so I just had to report that. I also wanted to report that we approved the 3 cases as a student SSID 672-897-8483-0, number 941-649-1356, and 895-631-0387. The first case, 672, with those 3 numbers at the start, was approved by 3 out of the 3 trustees who were here. Trustee Landels-Cobb was not here at that time. Case number 89563, with the number starting there, was voted on by 3 out of 3 trustees. Landels-Cobb was not present. And then for the last one, 94164, 4 out of 4 trustees voted on that. And with that, I'll move us to procedural items. Welcome, everybody. Moving on with our agenda, we have procedural items. The first one is Pledge of Allegiance and a democratic reflection. I don't have one. I don't know if any of my fellow trustees did. If not, I will just move us along. All right. If you would like to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, you may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You did? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so with that, our next item is adopting the agenda and time allocations. Did we have any changes to the agenda or allocations from my fellow board members? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to adopt the, well, give everybody a chance.
Anybody? No?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as stated.
Great. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Fantastic. Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. All right, we have an agenda. Our next item is the recognition of retirees. Recognition ceremony and reception for retiring district employees. So we'll let Tyler and Julia take this one.
Sure. I'll pass to Julie.
All right. I feel like so honored to be the one that is sharing our recognition of our extraordinary teacher, Mary Accord. Mary, these words came from some of your colleagues. This was a collaborative effort. So, Mary has always been a strong, smart, and determined educator. Her commitment to helping every student succeed has been clear from day one. She's been a steady presence in the classroom, guiding students to do their best and always expecting great things from them. When we think of fourth grade at Manor, we think of Mary. She's brought history to life in ways that made it stick. Whether it was the gold dust or bust, play, or opera a la carte, she's found creative ways to make learning engaging and memorable. Mary can truly sing her way through California history. Mary gave her students an experience they'll never forget, the overnight Gold Rush trip. It was more than a field trip. It was a chance to connect with California history in a hands-on way, and she made that happen. Raise your hand if you had a kid that went on that trip with Mary. Beyond her classroom, Mary has been a supportive colleague and a team player. She's the kind of person you can count on to do the right thing, always with her students' best interest in mind. Mary's connection to this community runs deep. She and her husband raise their kids right here in Fairfax, with both Rachel and Matthew attending Manor in White Hill. And now she's looking forward to a new role, singing lullabies to her first grandchild, Rachel's daughter. And we know she'll bring the same warmth and dedication to that role as she did in her classroom. Mary, thank you for your years of service, for your creativity, for your integrity. You've made a lasting impact here, and we all wish you the best in the next chapter. Is to create a wordle for our retirees. So Mary has, I'm sure you all know this, but she's been in Ross Valley for 26 years. And you said recently, like, all in that classroom.
All in that classroom.
Like, wow. All of us who've been teachers or are teachers know what it means to have a classroom home. And, you know,
Like having a sex.
it is. You spend a lot of time there. These are some of the words that colleagues across the district have used to describe you. Creative, student-centered, environmentalist, inspiring, committed, honest, harmonious, talented, dedicated, operatic. There's a little memento for you. So much. So proud of you and so appreciative of all that you've given Ross Valley. Really incredible. Say?
No. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
And we have another retiree who also is a Manor person. I think she unfortunately wasn't able to make it
No, but Des will say some
evening,
words.
but yeah.
Come on up, Des.
Go for it.
So I wanted to introduce Des McKissock. Des is the Director of Maintenance and Operations. Many of you know him. And Des is the supervisor of Andrea Steptoe, who is the custodian here at the district office as well as at Manor, and has also worked at White Hill during her career. And with that, I'll turn it over to Des.
Good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, Andrea underwent dental surgery yesterday and is still suffering the effects of that, so is unable to attend the ceremony to honour her service in the Ross Valley School District. So their thoughts go out to at the moment. Andrea came to the Ross Valley School District.
Des, so sorry. Can you start over so we can film it to give to Andrea?
Yes, please.
Next it'll be on your Instagram. Free too.
Unfortunately, Andrea had dental surgery yesterday and is still suffering from the effects of that, so she's unable to attend the ceremony to honour her service to the Ross Valley School District. Andrea came to the Ross Valley School District in October 2015, where she began working 9 hours per week as a night custodian at Whitehall, three 3-hour shifts. Within 12 months, she had worked her way up to a full-time night custodial position at the same school. She had a brief period at Hidden Valley during COVID, but she was transferred to a new position looking after the district office in Manor, where she has remained for the last 5 years. Now, no one sets out to become a custodian. It's often a lonely, sometimes monotonous and thankless vocation. But Andrea has persisted and has now served our school district for close to 10 years. For that, we are truly grateful. She has struggled with ill fortune over the last couple of years with the passing of her daughter and her husband. So we do appreciate her battling through such adversity and still trying to put her best foot forward in the interests of our students and our school district. Andrea, I hope that your retirement brings you a chance to reflect on your time here and also to rest those weary and achy bones that sneak up on everyone, especially those involved in active daily labour. I trust that she has fond memories of her time here at the Ross Valley School District and wish her nothing but the best in health and prosperity for the next chapter in her life. Good luck, Andrea, and Ross Valley is so appreciative and grateful for your nearly 10 years of service to our district. All the best. Similar to what Julie, it's called what?
Wordle.
Oh. My accent, it might sound different, okay? So, for Andrea's 10 years of service, words used to describe Andrea: considerate, sweet, big-hearted, devoted, gentle and generous, personable, respectful, gracious. So, and of course, compassionate. I wish Andrea was here because I'd love to give her a hug for what she's been through. Okay? I think we all feel the same way. So we'll pass this on to her. We've got some flowers to send to her. I'll reach out to her tonight, Julia. Okay? And if we can get that video to her, that'd be terrific.
For sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
And just personally, Mary, 26 years in this place. You deserve it, mate.
We have some lovely refreshments for folks to enjoy.
Take it.
All right, welcome back. It's a lovely reception. And thank you to all of our retirees. We really appreciate your service. Our next item is e-communication. We are taking public comment regarding items that are not on the public session agenda. So if you have anything that is not already on our agenda and you would like to speak, please raise your hand or come up. All right, seeing none, I will move on. We really appreciate your service. Our next item is e-communication. Okay. Next item is correspondence and communication to the board. So there are a couple items there attached. Hopefully everybody was able to read through that. Our next item is announcements by labor unions. So CSEA and RVTA. If you would like to come up, you may feel free to do so and give an update. If this is about something that's on the agenda, though, they can wait till that item comes up.
Yeah, we're here for the RVTA.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a lot of station
Just clarify.
Thank you. Christina Workman, Hidden Valley teacher and RVTA co-vice president.
Cindy Credo, teacher, Hidden Valley co-president.
And we're here on behalf of all of our RVTA members with the end of the year reflection that we'd like to share. So as we reflect on the school year, we appreciate the positive relationship that we've built with the board and the district, an open, transparent, and collaborative relationship that continues to focus on our students. And we're grateful again for our parent community that took the risk on with Measure E this year.
We end this school year still feeling the huge disappointment of Measure E not passing, and therefore no prospects of starting the next school year with a negotiated contract. We end this school year with continuing concerns about losing educators to higher paying districts and wondering if the district will be able to fill open positions with competent staff.
Looking ahead to the 25-26 school year, we are facing known budget cuts that will directly impact our students, and yet again an unsettled contract for our RVTA. Additionally, we have a potential ELA adoption that will require many more hours beyond what we already do. Not all staff are in agreement with the timing of this adoption. We will begin the school year with 2 professional development days focused on the new curriculum, which equates to 1 less day to prepare our classrooms for our new students. So even before the new school year starts, many teachers are feeling very overwhelmed.
We're grateful and hopeful for continued collaboration among staff, district administration, board members, and our Ross Valley community. We remain focused on what matters most, our students.
Thank you.
And moving on with our agenda. Next item is F, presentation and or action items. The first item we have there is the recommended adoption of Resolution 2024-25, recognizing June 2025 as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month.
Yeah, so really excited to bring this resolution to the board for consideration tonight. And I think these resolutions that we've done this year are a good signal to the community about our commitment to inclusive education and making sure that our schools are places where kids and families and staff feel really welcomed. And I think the LGBTQIA+ Pride Month resolution is a perfect example of exactly that, because when you look through our community, you see students that identify as, LGBTQIA+, you see staff members, you see parents and children, and you see board members that identify this way. And I think it's important that we name this explicitly, especially given the context of the federal government and changes that we're seeing. And to me, this isn't political at all. This is about inclusion and belonging, something that we are very clearly in favor of, and we've been working really hard for many years to make this an inclusive place. And this is one that I'm really proud of, and I know many of our staff members are very proud to bring to you tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Tyler? No? All right. I will open it up to public comments. I have 3 people who wanted to speak on this, so if you wanted to come up and take seats, please do. I've got Kim Hicks, Lydia Dorsami, Cindy Credo, and Christina.
Good evening. My name is Lydia Durasami. I am a parent, mother of 2 children in the district. One that's attending Hidden Valley and the other one that's at White Hill this year, first year. And just as a parent in the district, I just want to emphasize how important and valuable seeing something like this in our district, what it means to our family. It's very empowering for us to see that it's being recognized and that the teachers are empowered and they have this to back them up in regards to whatever they might want to bring into the classroom and into the community, and sharing these perspectives and ideas, that they have something there to help them do that and feel that. So I just want to say thank you so much for bringing this for this month, and it's such a wonderful celebration and brings a lot of joy to our family. Thank you.
One thing I forgot to mention is we have 3 minutes for your comments, so just you'll get like a warning at 2.5 minutes.
I don't think I'll use that much time. Is this thing on? Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Hicks. I am the proud mother of a trans daughter that goes to White Hill. And I'm thrilled to see that y'all want to hopefully pass this resolution. I hope you do. It's been hard. It's been a hard year. You know, this is an unusual time for these kids that are kind of just like coming into themselves, and now they can see things happening on the internet. They hear things said about them. And even going to the doctor is stressful right now because they are told things like maybe not. Things are gonna work out for you. So it feels really good to be able to go to school. It's a very safe place. She feels really good there. And it felt really good even coming here tonight and being able to say, you know what, like, you know, I'm going to the school board meeting, they're gonna pass this resolution. It feels good. It feels good that we live in this community, and it feels good that I can say that to her. So yeah, just here in support of it all, and hopefully we'll pass that.
Cindy Credo, TK teacher in Valley, co-president of RVTA.
And I'm just speaking as a teacher right now and a community member. Christina Workman.
We'd like to begin by thanking the board for recognizing June as Pride Month. In this past school year, the district has recognized many various marginalized groups each month. We are here to ask for more authentic accountability and action.
Every day, our classrooms are committed to creating learning environments where everyone feels safe, supported, and celebrated for who they are. We're seeking action and accountability from the district and the board to step beyond the mission statement and the obligatory months. Equity and inclusion needs to be visible all year, from the district office to the classroom to the playgrounds. We would like to have collaboration with the board and cabinet on what this looks like moving forward in order to be ever evolving and not become stagnant. We need to listen to the voices of our community, our students, and their families so they can feel honored, respected, and protected.
We are asking the board and district to consider mindfully engaging in commerce with companies and organizations that align to our DEI ethos. We want our district to be more than performative. For example, we should raise our pride flag from an actual flagpole, not just an office window or banister, every single day. Students and families should feel seen and welcome from the first day of school and all year long. If that cannot be done, at the very least, we should proudly fly pride flags on our flagpole every June.
We believe it's important that our district is a leader in guiding the future and leading by example. That our district continues to create a safe and affirming space for all members of our community every day. Thank you.
Do you have anybody else who'd like to comment on this item? Okay. So that I will bring it back to the board for discussion. Do you have any?
I will say my youngest son walked into our bedroom and said to my wife, "There's a parade that happens in San Francisco every year, and there's these colors on the flag that represent different things of the gay community. We're red, I think. Why aren't you taking me there? And when can I make rainbow cookies to pass out that day?" And I will say that he was able to talk about Stonewall. We went to the library and picked up a book. He wanted to know about what it was like when I was little and knowing that I was gay at a very young age. And I'm going to the San Francisco Pride Parade for the first time because my 9-year-old was inspired by his teacher in 3rd grade, who's really openly teaching the history of LGBTQIA+ individuals. And that's the happy story. The other side is that I am pretty sure that every parent of a trans child is not saying, "You're going to the Olympics." They're saying, "I want you to live and I want you to be happy." Okay? And if we have any part of that in our power, I just want to say, please let those 9-year-olds come home and continue to say those things, especially shamefully to the parents that don't even talk about their own identities to them, but also to really help those children that are coming up and having, I think, just a mountain to move every day I hope that mountain's relieved when they come on our campuses. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, again, another no-brainer. I mean, these are great. This is great.
And I appreciate public comment and hearing proactive suggestions for us to think about and consider. That's one of the things that I value about getting to have public comment is when we hear what people appreciate, and then we really like what you're considering, and here's some ideas of how you might put it into practice.
Yeah.
That's super helpful up here. And I know I take that into consideration, so I really appreciate that a lot.
And one of the things that we wove into this resolution is that we will be hanging the pride flag from the flagpole every June, and it's in the resolution. I think that was something that we thought long and hard about, and felt like we needed to make sure we memorialize that for folks.
Yep, we appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Right. I'm glad this is here, and I'm sorry it's taken so long to be here. And with that, I'll entertain a motion on this item if someone would like to make one.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for affirming support for Ross Valley School District LGBTQIA plus community month to be recognized in June, and that the resolution be passed.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Chris.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. So we've adopted a resolution. All right. The next item is recommended adoption of EL education as the K-5 English Language Arts instructional program. Julia.
I'm very excited about this. It's been a long journey. And we really wanted to just start with a huge thank you. This is our pilot team, our ELA pilot team, and these folks started, we gathered last year and engaged in a lot of them. Melina's going to tell you more about it, but it's been hard work. They have done some extremely heavy lifting, and they've done it with grace and with thoughtfulness and with humor and with curiosity. And I'm very, very proud of them and very appreciative. And I also want to really specifically shout out Melina, who has done most of the leading of this work, and she's been incredible in all of her organization and facilitation and really helping this difficult process really to move forward.
Thank you. I'm Melina Olenberger, the district TOSA and elementary coach. Just to backtrack a little bit to what got us to this place. Like Julia said, this work has been a long time coming. It started in the spring of 2023 when we gathered a working group to establish our core beliefs in English language arts. And we developed a clear set of guiding principles, which then was woven throughout the rest of the steps that we took. So I think it's important to call that out because that really guided every step following. After that, in the spring of 2024, that's when we gathered our pilot team and we began our curriculum review and selection, which was another in-depth process that we used our guiding principles for. We ended up selecting 2 programs to pilot this past school year. In the fall of this past fall, our pilot team implemented Benchmark Advanced. They participated in training sessions, classroom observations, and completed a very thorough and comprehensive evaluation. I'll talk about our evaluation tool that we created using our guiding principles next. And then following that in the spring, just this past spring, hot off the presses, our team piloted EL education and went through the same steps, only with training and classroom observations. Only this time we partnered with Larkspur Court of Madera, who also piloted EL education, so we were able to do that in tandem with them. And then we also completed a thorough evaluation of the program. These are the the letter animal cards that go along with EL education, just so you know.
What is the U?
The U, oh, I'm blanking right now, but that is a really good question. There's a whole story behind each animal in the EL education program, and fun fact, the shape also corresponds with the shape of the letter. So I can go back and find the story behind the U and get back to you. I do know that the T is a turn.
You have the clicker right.
Oh,
there.
thank you.
Good.
I kind of liked how last time I was able to. So we, like I said, we developed our program lens based on our guiding principles for ELA, and we identified 7 main areas: foundational skills, text-centered reading, text-centered writing, demonstration of learning, language structure and supports, representation, and design. And we use that to create our lens with which we evaluated each program. I have linked in this slide deck our comprehensive ELA program summary, but I'll go ahead and go to the next slide that has the overview of our summary based on our evaluation by our pilot team. So just to give you a little context, the pilot team rated each program in each area on a scale of 1, 3, or 5. And so what you're seeing are the averages of every grade level team's rating of the program in that particular area. So as you can see, EL education came out on top over benchmark, actually quite significantly. I just want to point out that one super strong area of EL education was the representation. I'm going to go into a little bit about EL education's mission and vision and their use of authentic texts that have diverse characters and mirrors and windows. 2 areas that were concerning for the team were text-centered writing. Although EL education was rated higher by our team than benchmark, it was still an area that they just felt that needed to be bolstered a little bit. That could have to do with the fact that we were piloting beginning of the year materials in the spring. And that's something that we'll keep a close eye on as we implement on how to bolster the writing. The next area is design and knowledge, and although design, so basically how the program is laid out. For EL Ed, we gave it 2 ratings because, and I'm going to get into this later, there's 2 portions of the program. There's the knowledge portion of the program, and then there's the skills portion of the program. So the skills was rated very highly by our team for its design, whereas the knowledge design was rated a little bit lower, although it was higher than benchmark. I think one part that speaks to the fact that we were piloting a brand new 2025 version of the program, and some components weren't quite ready yet. We really pushed the publishers to get us the newest materials quickly before they were 100% ready, so that we could pilot the latest and greatest. So yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just trying to tick in time. So the benchmark is from the fall 24 completed thorough evaluation, right? So that's the numbers that you came. And then in spring of 2025 is the ELED, correct?
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at these numbers, the design K through 2 skills NA, but I'm going through this and looking and noticing like the differential. You've got the text-centered writing, but then the text-centered reading, there's like such a disparate, like how is that? If the text-centered writing is so down, how is the text-centered reading so up?
Right.
Did you guys talk about that?
In both programs,
Yeah.
right, actually. It's kind of, I think I've spoken to the board before about how there's no perfect program, and any program is going to have an area that's weaker than others. And I think just we haven't found a comprehensive program that includes both reading and writing where both are equally as strong.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty confident that we can supplement the writing portion as long as we have the reading portion super strong.
Yeah.
I also think we don't quite know yet. I mean, as Melina said, we piloted mid-year some beginning of year units, and one of the things when we talked to the to our rep from the company, she was like, yeah, because the writing builds over the course of the year, so you're gonna see much more. So it's a little bit of a question for us.
It's also writing, to go back to the science of reading, the shift in writing is moving towards text-centered writing. So when you're, instead of writing, like for example, when we were doing units of study, students are writing a lot about what they already know in their life experience. And so the volume of writing might be a lot more. Whereas now with the focus on writing to explain or synthesize what you've learned from a text, your volume is gonna go down, right? But the writing is more focused on learning and text-centered. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an interesting delta between the two. They're so correlated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just curious. Thank you.
Good question. So now I'll go a little bit more into EL education and why our team recommends the program for adoption. Here's the vision and the mission of EL education. Their vision is when students and teachers are engaged in work that is challenging, adventurous, and meaningful, learning and achievement flourish. Their mission is to create classrooms where teachers can fulfill their highest aspirations and students achieve more than they think possible, becoming active contributors to building a better world. And I do have to say, you see this vision and this mission threaded throughout the curriculum. So 3 main highlights of EL education based on the feedback from our pilot team. Number 1, they found that it had a strong instructional design with clear routines. So there's explicit learning targets for students for every lesson and consistent routines and structures. Number 2 is our team really loved the high quality and diverse texts. They were engaging and culturally diverse literature, and they gave students exposure to multiple perspectives and also to meaningful content across grade levels. And then the third main pro for EL education, according to our team, was the built-in assessment and differentiation. There was frequent varied assessments in the program with, again, clear learning targets, and also built-in supports for ML multilingual learners and just diverse learners through their differentiation, which I'll speak more to. So to speak to the structure of the program, we've got the K2 and the 3-5. In the K2, there's 2 main components. One is the knowledge building component. That's where the read alouds and the picture books are, and that's for knowledge building. The second part of the program is the skills block, so that's where your phonics, your spelling, your grammar come in, and that's all taught in small group. And then going to the 3rd through 5th curriculum also is broken up into 2 parts. Also the module lessons, which is the content building lessons or the knowledge building lessons. That's where the novel studies are located. And then for 3rd through 5th, they have something called All Block, which is their version of their differentiated small groups. Just a more flexible grouping in All Block. Each block is, according to EL, 60 minutes long for a total of 120 minutes. Here's a note about curriculum publishers, is they all write their curriculum as though that's the only thing you teach all day. So there's what the curriculum writers write on paper, and then there's reality. So we understand there's gonna be some wiggle room there. So now I wanna speak to the authentic texts, which was a big highlight from our pilot team. EL education really places a focus on selecting texts with diverse authors and also diverse characters in the text. There's a focus on text being used as mirrors and windows, which I'll talk more about, but that comes from Dr. Rudine Sims-Bishop's ideas of mirrors and windows. They focus on authentic representation, just focusing on diversity and individuals with different abilities, and also empowering critical thinking. We just loved the choices and the thoughtfulness with which the texts were selected. So mirrors, for example, are books where students can see themselves. So with the intention of building student pride and self-esteem in various identities. And here's a couple of examples right under there of some texts used. That's a first grade text and then a second grade text for the most magnificent thing, first grade, off to class, second grade. And then we have books that are meant to be windows. So giving students the opportunity to learn about each other, to learn about other people and other cultures, learn about various identities and a diverse society. And then finally, books, mentor texts and books as sliding glass doors that allow students to identify systems of injustice and understand the role of activism and social change. That is a really strong thread throughout the program starting from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. And both Waiting for the Biblioburo and Esperanza Rising. Biblioburo is 3rd grade and Esperanza Rising is 5th grade. And those are really good example texts for just invoking activism and social change. There are 4 modules in a year, and a module is kind of just a basic, an overall theme, right? And there's 4 modules in a year. These are the themes and topics for each grade level across the year. So as you can see, even just by the topics, there's a lot of diversity in topic, and I'll say 5th grade, athlete leaders of social change. I kind of looked into that one this year, and that one's a really inspiring one to me personally.
And about half are STEM and half are humanities.
Right.
So in terms of what the knowledge component is.
Yeah. So they do tie into the grade levels, science and social studies standards. Then speaking to differentiation in K2, there's a skills block that I mentioned before. And this is where a teacher is able in K2 to meet their students' needs, whether a student needs more challenge or they need a little bit more scaffolding to understand specific phonics skills. It consists of whole group time where everyone's learning together on grade level content, then small differentiated groups, and during that time there's instructional guidance. So I'll say as a teacher, often a curriculum will tell you to do small differentiated groups, but then doesn't give you any lesson or any guidance as to how or what exactly to teach, whereas EL education has guided lessons for various instructional groupings, whether a student is really emerging as a reader or really already a reader. And then it also includes independent student activities for independent groups.
Does the pilot group provide any type of feedback about the type of text and books that were provided, positive or negative?
As far as the decodable readers,
yeah.
or
no, the books that are noted in the authentic text.
Like I said in the beginning, that was the highlight for the pilot.
That was the highlight, and so there was complete positive.
Complete positive, and as a matter of fact, a big difference between EL education and Benchmark is that their texts are authentic texts, whereas it's not a basal reader, whereas Benchmark, they're reading from kind of like a textbook. It's actually more like pamphlets these days, but like a textbook. And so our teachers loved the fact that not only were they authentic texts, but we had our mirrors and windows, of course. We're reading real books, basically. Yeah. And in the upper grades, every student has a chapter book in their hands that they're reading as a novel study. Yeah. So then going back to differentiation in 3rd through 5th, this is what it looks like. It's called All Block, and during this time, students are grouped into 3 groups. the group working with the teacher is homogeneous, meaning that they are all needing to work on the same skill. And then the other two groups, one are heterogeneous groupings, and the theory behind that is so that there can be built-in scaffolding between students who are reading at different levels. So a small group may be doing accountable independent reading, which was also a highlight from our pilot team, was that there is time and space in EL education for student choice in reading books. So they have their novel study, but then there's also time for a student to have a choice book. And then on top of that, there's accountable follow-up work for students to do with their choice book. So they're not just reading, they're also doing some follow-up work with it. And then there's task cards, which address grammar usage and mechanics. And those are also differentiated, so they come in different levels depending on what students need. So a lot of built-in scaffolding and differentiation in the program. So here is a video of EL education in action. If I hit next, will it play the video? Okay. So these are some of our pilot teachers teaching the program.
Okay. We're gonna do number 1. Give me a thumb or if you think it is correct. Okay. Number 2. Give me a thumb if you think it's correct. If you picked number 1, raise your hand and tell me why.
Because this one is not like in the other that was
You were looking at some of the letters around the room. I like it. You were telling our very own weather story. The very rainy day. I wonder if we could turn and talk with our partners about what we would put in the middle of a rainy day story. What should Miss Wagner and Teddy do on a rainy day?
What does an adjective do in a sentence? What does an adjective do in a sentence?
Yeah.
What does an adjective do in a sentence?
Describes a noun.
Describes a noun. Can you think of some examples of adjectives? I overheard some of you already sharing.
Nouns are people, place, things, and ideas.
Place, things, and ideas. What about a verb? We did a lot of work with verbs already too. What are verbs? In the book's title, Nazreen's Secret School. You have 3 choices there, so it's made up of 3 words. One of those is in fact an adjective. It's describing a noun. Which one, Sybil?
Secret.
Secret. How does that help you understand anything about this book? Just hearing that title, Nazreen's Secret School, and knowing that secret is trying to describe something, what does that help you with?
Only people who know.
Oh, the people who know won't tell. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna ask you questions about this story. You go back and find it. What does the king in the song buy in the cash from his bank? What does the king in the cash from his bank? Emma. Those sounds in those words. I'm going to put this right here, and we're going to go right here and highlight words with in, on, any words in, on, Let's go. And what's the one? And the other one is. I love that you're going to side by side and some.
Now Julia is going to speak a little bit to the professional development.
Yeah. Thank you, Melina. I really appreciate you explaining the program so beautifully. Okay, so Melina talked about how there's two parts to the program, which is why there are basically two launch days, one for the knowledge modules and one for the skills block or all block, depending on the grade level. And so we're looking at having those 2 days in August. We typically have 3 teacher work days and 1 professional development day in August. So what we are doing is when we created our calendar for this year, October 3rd was a professional development day, and we're swapping. And so October 3rd will be a teacher work day. And so the number of teacher work days and the number of professional development days will stay the same. And it's 1 less teacher work day at the start of the year when teachers are setting up their classrooms. So totally hear that is, difficult to juggle. So that's the launch. In January, we'll use that day as well for supporting our work around EL education. A lot of the time that we'll be spending during our professional development days are really unpacking by grade level the program and really digging in and working to understand it. EL education coaches are going to be providing site-based coaching this year. Each site will have 3 days of coaching. And then we typically have 4 or 5 district grade level meetings over the course of the year. And we are planning on devoting that time to this work as well. So that's a time for 3rd grade teachers from all of our 4 sites to get together and talk about how things are going and share best practices and tips and tricks and all of that kind of thing. And then of course, Melina, as our instructional coach, provides support as well. We can also look into having grade level release days if that's something that ends up being a need from our staff. But really, anytime there's an ask of teachers, what teachers need is time to really dig in and do the planning and the work that it entails. And when we talked as a pilot team about what was needed, that was the conversation. And just recognizing that also it can't all be PD where you're sitting and learning. It needs to be time to just dig in and do the work of reading through it on your own and planning out your lessons and preparing materials and that sort of thing. And then in terms of program cost, so print materials on the left-hand side there, the total cost for all of our K through 5th grade classes is just over $200,000, which is a lot of money. And that includes all of our teacher manuals, all of the student texts and workbooks for 1 year. So ongoing costs would be the workbooks, kind of like with our Bridges math program. We buy workbooks every year. Those are consumable, so you have to buy them every year. The rest of these are a one-time cost. And the funding source is the Art, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant, which is those are one-time dollars that sunshine in June of 2026. And so we actually have really wanted to have an adoption before those dollars go away, because it's very difficult to come up with dollars for an adoption unless you have those kinds of one-time monies. And then in terms of professional development from EL education, you can see what's included there. Along with the teacher launch days, we're going to have a leadership launch day, and that's going to be a shared day with the principals and leadership in Larkspur. It's looking like Nicasio, Lagunitas, and that's one-room schoolhouse that I always forget. Union? Is it Union? What's the one-room schoolhouse? Anyways, they're joining us as well. And I think that's really important for our principals. Laguna, that's what it is. Thank you. To just become very familiar with the program so that they can support their teachers as well. And then the school-based coaching and some strategic planning sessions with leadership, and the dollars for professional development will be coming from our Educator Effectiveness Grant.
And it's a 5-year program. I remember us talking about it last time. How many years is this?
Well, the materials are will be good forever. It's as long as we want to continue using the program. So the only ongoing costs would be the workbooks.
And do the workbooks come out of the block grant going forward, or is that
No, because
No.
the block grant will go away.
Okay.
So those will come out of lottery,
Lottery instructional materials funds, which we
Yeah.
get every year.
and those funds can only be allocated to
Instructional
instructional materials. So they're the typical funds. As I say, the funds we use for our Bridges workbooks and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Question?
Mm-hmm.
What looks interesting, granted there's a lot of newness and I can understand teachers, trying to go through and get a grasp of it. But it seems like this program, as opposed to the other one, had a lot of differentiated materials to start out with, which hopefully will be a good starting place and reduce the amount of time that it would maybe normally take teachers to create their own differentiated things and having to do their actual creation. So there's still a lot of learning and ramping up, but it seems like this program has a lot of that material-wise already in place, which
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, teachers will be investing time and energy into this program, and I think in the long run, I really feel it will pay off. But it is going to be important to provide that planning time. But the program's really rich. It has a lot available for teachers for the different things that they need to do within their classroom. And as Melina said, having the support for differentiation is huge.
Yeah.
The program this is a brand new program. We're one of the first districts to pilot it, although there's a 2017 version, so it's both new and not new. But in terms of this edition, it's pretty brand spanking new. The skills block portion of it for K2 came out in 2024, and that's the one that the teachers rated really strongly, our K2 teachers. And I think a part of that is that it was really easy to navigate because it was good to go. The full program will be good to go this summer. So I have confidence that it will, the work that our teachers will be doing will be easier than the work that our pilot teachers did. And I do, we wouldn't be bringing it forward if we didn't feel that it was a worthy program. It's one of the things that the trainer that we've been working with always says, talking about the program, is that it's a thinking teachers program, and it's a program that really emphasizes critical thinking and rich discussions. It has lots of protocols that it has the kids use so that it'll, it's time for the kids to discuss something, and instead of just saying, oh, turn to your partner, there's like 6 different ways that you can go and talk with the partner. It's pinky partner time, it's back to back, it's, getting kids up out of their seats. There's no tech in this program other than the PowerPoints that teachers might be using. It's really a authentic, organic program with rich texts, and I think are really compelling for kids and teachers.
I just want to mention, to build on the thinking teachers idea, as I've gotten to know the teachers of this district, we have thinking teachers. We have really high quality, thoughtful teachers. This program is a high bar program. This is not one that you just jump into and can teach without significant professional development. So appreciate you thinking critically about that. But the fact that our teachers chose this program is emblematic of the quality of teachers in our district. Excellent teachers choose programs like this. I'm really proud of the decision that our team made because it is a big program with meaty things to unpack. And I think our teachers are up to the challenge and have the skills to do the differentiation and engage with rich texts like this. So really proud of our teachers.
It seems like some of this is already being implemented in pockets, or the mirrors and windows things I remember hearing about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. The small group reader thing, I know lots of teachers are already doing some. It seems like there's some versions of a lot of this, so some of it's not like a whole brand new. I wouldn't want whoever might be listening to this to think that we're like rolling out this brand new thing that nobody's ever done any pieces of before. There's a lot of it, but it weaves it all together with a really clear, purposeful.
The program is built on research and built on best practices, and our teachers are also,
they're masters of their craft, and so they know how to use these different protocols. They on their own select beautiful books to use with their students. I believe that all of the work that our teachers have done with units of study for reading and writing, the program that we've had for a very long time, they've learned so much about how to be a masterful reading and writing teacher that can be applied to the work that they'll be doing within this program as well.
So then the professional development and the teacher work day at the beginning of the year, that's a struggle anyway. And so I wonder how we can get the parent clubs, if teachers are okay with that, to have parent volunteers just there those couple of days just to help staple things or take staples out of walls or to help put pieces of paper into binders. I did that for the math, for 5th grade math this year. I just happened to be on campus. So there might be a need for more parents just to get involved, to volunteer, just to, hey, put me to work. What do you need? I don't know if the teachers would all want that, but the teachers that I spoke to last year at Brookside were just thankful that somebody else was there. And so maybe there's a way that we can get more of the parent clubs behind, hey, 5 parents on whatever, helping out.
I think there's lots of support that, would be welcomed. I think principals probably would be the best person to connect with on that in terms of organizing what that looks like.
Good.
We have some cutting that we need done.
Yeah. Will there be a lot of unpacking and a bunch of new materials and things like that when it comes to us?
Yeah, this last year we moved forward with the next edition, the 3rd edition of our math program, if you remember. And what we did was we delivered the new curriculum. Teachers took the new curriculum out of the boxes. They put the old curriculum in the boxes. Chris and Des organized a sweep of the district of picking everything up. We need to do that kind of work again as well.
And you got to put the pieces of paper into the binders so they can just pull off.
There's no binders in this program.
No, but I'm referring to like the math one from last year. Like
yes,
the
bridges
math.
math. Yeah.
So it's just like, that was an easy thing to help out with. And so I'll try to connect with the principals and to see if there's something we can do with parent clubs to get parents out there those couple of days.
That's terrific. The materials are already spiral bound, so
very, very nice.
Put them into binders.
Any more questions? If not, I will go on to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing so please identify yourself when you get up to the top.
Good evening, Peter Berg, Wade Thomas parent. I could not state definitively tonight if it's the curriculum, the efforts of my son, or the fact that Julie Beret and Joelle Ott, who have piloted, are just phenomenal teachers. Go Mustangs. But I've seen my son become a much more confident reader over the last 2 years. He's now reading compliance documentation with me, which is a little frustrating. Might be too smart for his britches. But I support this method of teaching. I've seen firsthand the positive outcomes it can have. Both with my own child and his classmates as well. For one. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comment on this item?
I'm on it. Maybe I have 2 kids at Manor, and somehow one of my kids been piloting this thing or next thing for like 3 semesters now in a row. And so I heard comments about that, and the unit they piloted in their classroom, he was very excited about it, and I can see how engaged he was with the materials that he was learning, that he would actually be telling me about it. Usually it's not often the case, I would say, that I hear about what's actually happening in the classroom. So I take that as a fantastic sign. And I think that thing, from what I know, and also I guess I was going to say that Manor, unlike maybe others, was used EL, we used EL project-based learning school, so we have a lot of experience with the EL methodology, and it's a really fantastic approach that is science-based, which I always appreciate. Anyway, I just want to say that it seemed like it's really truly the great thing to do, and I appreciate the teacher, and it takes extra work to do all the piloting, and I think it's clearly good enough thing that we should just adopt it and be done piloting.
To piggyback on that, yes, EL education also has a character building component, which is separate from their ELA curriculum. However, some of their components, they call them habits of character, and some of those components get woven throughout the ELA curriculum. And so you'll see learning targets that are habits of character targets in the ELA curriculum. So it's both a standalone character curriculum and program, but then also within the ELA program, there are components of it.
Any more public comments? Sorry, I needed to check on that. No? Okay. All right. With that, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board to discuss. Do you have any comments up here on this?
No, just like with the math one, I really appreciate how thoughtful and well-designed the piloting was for this. Starting with kind of guiding principles and then going deeper into the details and being, ratings and rubrics and thoughtfulness and involving students. And so just appreciate that. It makes our decision, it makes the decision making process for us easier when we can really see how you came to your decision to propose something to us. So appreciate that.
And I think, we think about like, where does the love of reading start? And it really does start at this small nucleic level. I don't know if you guys have heard about this Columbia professor who was shocked that 90% of his classes complained because they're overwhelmed. Very few of them have read a book from front to back. And to have a program like this, to teach kids to see themselves in books and to find that love to start early, I think we're really going to help nurture, if not a microcosm, for hope it's a macrocosm of individuals and readers that are excited about continuing to go front to back as they continue to grow. So this speaks volumes. For the love of reading and having our teachers have that in the classroom. So I think it's fantastic. A lot, really, really like it.
The 232-page PDF on the alphabet does not have the U.
I can see there's a bird flying.
It has an umbrella.
So you're not going to approve the.
I don't know. That's not consistent.
I can do some digging.
232 pages.
What are you looking at?
It's a bird
it's
with
deep.
an
Well,
arrow.
according to this, it's an umbrella.
Well.
Or is it
Different
umbrella?
picture.
That's
It's a different picture.
2017 version.
This whole thing's great. I mean, you guys, this whole thing's great.
And I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to the pilot teachers. I've talked with a number of them over the course of the year and spoken with union leadership about the amount of work that it is, and I really want to give them a big shout out.
Absolutely.
When you saw the pictures of them, those are some of our superstar teachers that have volunteered to do more than their already big job. So big kudos to them. And I also want to thank Melina. I've been part of pilots as a teacher before and been an administrator overseeing them, and facilitating a pilot is very challenging. Teachers have big opinions about the textbooks that they want to use, and facilitating those big feelings is very difficult. And one thing I really appreciate that Melina did is Melina wanted the teachers to make the decision, and she wanted the teachers to pick the program that they would implement. And I think she did a remarkable job of letting the conversation breathe and be sticky and challenging, but shepherding it forward in a really nice way. And she deserves a lot of credit for the outcome and taking care of the teachers through the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, staff recommends that board adopt
Of course.
EL education as our K-5 ELA instructional program.
That's interesting. I was on Muir's campus last June, I think with you, Julia, and I was talking to you, and you were talking about this coming up before the board, and you guys were you were going to be trying all these different curriculums, and I just remember thinking, and you were telling me how much work it is. And to echo Tyler, like, I'm very grateful to all the teachers who piloted this. 'Cause that's a big lift.
It's a huge lift.
And so I know this has been a really packed, full school year with lots of stuff going on. So just very appreciative of all our teachers, and I was so happy to hear that they had chosen one. So with that, I will entertain a motion on this item, unless we have any further conversation up here.
I'd make a motion that we adopt EL education as the K through 5 English Language Arts instructional program.
Can I have a second?
I have a second?
Is that a question?
No.
Okay. Okay.
We'll stay with that second. I will second.
All right, cool. Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, we have adopted EL education. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All that work.
Thank you, Marina. Alex.
No more
Pilots.
pilots.
And say if you're a teacher and you would like to leave, please feel free. Next item is staff presentation and public hearing, local control and accountability plan.
That's me.
Let's actually do the hearing part of that in the midst of this.
Alrighty, it's that time of year. I think we're all familiar with what the LCAP is, our 3-year district level plan. And we update it annually, and we are currently in year 1 of our LCAP. And important to remind ourselves that the LCAP addresses the needs of all of our students, including, and most specifically, what we call our unduplicated students, our multilingual learners, our foster youth, our low-income students, and the LCAP also addresses the state of California's 8 priority areas. And the LCAP is a team effort. All of these groups have input into the LCAP. Most importantly, our Superintendent's Council, which includes classified and certificated staff, site and district admin, parent club leaders, site council reps, equity task force reps, a whole conglomeration of district folk who provide feedback and input into the LCAP and the revision of the LCAP. And then we also consult with our special education local plan area. We consult with our teacher leadership group, a really important group of folk for this. Our district English learner advisory council, of course, our site and district admin team, our parent guardian equity task force, and our students. Okay, so we have 3 goals, and our first goal is an academic goal. And that goal is really about making sure that all of our students receive high quality instruction and the supports and interventions that they need. And particularly, we are really focused on closing that opportunity gap between those who historically underperform or don't perform as well as some of our other students. And to that end, we had 4 actions for goal 1. One of those, the first action is priority standards, and I'm happy to say that we did it. Our elementary teachers identified priority standards for both English language arts and mathematics. Our middle school teachers have identified priority standards in all content areas. We also implemented our new diagnostic assessment tool for reading and mathematics, iReady, in grades K through 8. And we have been implementing a reading screener, reading difficulty screener, and now, as you know, have adopted it, and that's called MClass. Our learning teams is another action. This is our groups of staff who get together and dig into data and make instructional plans. And that's been happening at both the site and the district level. Part of that work has been identifying learning targets for lessons, analyzing data, and really engaging in that cycle of plan, do, study, act, where you're looking at data, planning instruction based on the data, going back, seeing how you did, and doing it again.
And then that third action is our ELA curriculum adoption, and we did it. And then ELD instruction, we have had a whole district focus on teacher clarity this year, particularly the use of learning targets, and also really looking at explicit instruction in the classroom. There's significant research that talks about the importance of explicit instruction. That's a big part of why we are shifting our ELA program, is because we need that foundational skills work. And just a little bit of evidence, these are last year's CASP scores, but you can see that nearly all student groups showed growth for ELA. And for math, all of our student groups showed growth, which is terrific. We are starting to get scores back for this year and seeing lots of bright spots there too. And then iReady, as expected, students progressed over the course of the year. So in terms of grade level proficiency, of knowing the content standards for their grade level and showing mastery of those, we see an increase over the course of the year. The assessment was administered 3 times over the course of the year. And then our reading screener is also for first and second grade, it's administered 3 times, and for kindergarten, we don't assess at the start of the year 2 times, and you can see again growth there. And our Melina was leading our intervention team today, taking a much deeper dive into our M-class reading results and kind of talking about planning for next year.
And is that roughly 78%, this slide and the previous one, is that a good number for benchmark? For this one, the iReady, like where it ends?
Yeah, it's in alignment with CASP, kind of where our CASP is. It's actually a little bit higher in some ways than we might see on our CASP, but this is inclusive of all grade levels, of course, where CASP is 3rd through 8th. Our second goal is a wellness goal, and really looking at how we're supporting our students' social emotional well-being. And we had 3 actions for that goal. The first action, we're really in an exploration phase. We were looking at, again, our ELA curriculum. EL education does have integrated SEL. There's a lot of sharing strategies, SEL, different strategies and programs across our sites. And then we're also exploring right now an anti-bias curriculum from Tanisha Tate. She's put together a community of belonging curriculum. That's a K through 8 curriculum. And we're looking at a possibility of moving forward with that next year, particularly at the middle school level and possibly piloting in elementary as well. We want to be careful though, because of the ask that's already there with a new ELA program. And then chronic absenteeism, we developed a playbook, playbook for how to decrease chronic absenteeism, and one of the actions that our principals took was to include looking at attendance data on a weekly basis at our care team meetings, and then also really looking at how they schedule days, that if it's a high absence day, scheduling something fun that day so kids want to come to school. And then we always looking at our sense of belonging data and digging into that, and again more sharing of the ways in which we celebrate and create belonging at all of our sites, both for our history and heritage months, and also digging a little bit more into neurodiversity and ability and other aspects of belonging.
How are we capturing that sense of belonging data?
We have our panorama survey that we're using.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also we had Healthy Kids this year, so for 5th grade and 7th grade.
Is the the neurodiversity and ability information, is that something that's being pushed or taught in the middle school level, or is it just TK through 5?
That's interesting. I don't actually know the answer to that. I know that in our elementary schools there were celebrations and acknowledgements at like their Wednesday welcome type things, but I'm not sure. Well, I think in the anti-bias lessons that Whitehill does, I think they touch on it, but I don't want to speak for John and Mary Claire because I don't know. Do you know, Eric? Okay, so we can get back to you on that. Okay, just a little more data. You know, we've had a lot of conversations about attendance, and we're doing a good job. It's going up. And then this is our Healthy Kids survey. This is just one aspect of it on school connectedness. And you can see the increases there from 2023. It's nice to see, especially that big leap for our Latinx kids. And then our third goal is about our community partners and how we engage them. And so part of that was really wanting in that first action to engage with our community around attendance. And the way that looked was our principals and some of our teachers conducting empathy interviews where they're really calling parents or having parents come in and just talking about what's going on, you know, how can we help get your kid to school? And just reaching out, showing encouragement, direct reach out to students, encouraging them to come to school as well. And then lots of communications, both at the site level and the district level around attendance was a part of our work this year. We did accomplish a lot in our equity work this year, particularly with our Parent Guardian Equity Task Force. We've created now, the task force has created an onboarding document for task force members. Every year we have new members and it can be a little wonky just trying to figure out helping to onboard folk to what the group is about. And then we created a slide deck to onboard new staff, both certificated and classified, in terms of our district equity work. You know, we have years and years of this work now that teachers have participated in and staff have participated in, and when we bring new people in, we want to make sure that they understand how central that work is for us. And then always the site-to-site sharing of the work. And then we have plaques at all of our sites showing our racial equity mission statement in the office. And then we are creating, this is something, we just have the template now, but we'll be launching next year, some large scale belonging posters for each of the sites that are tailored to the sites. So that was kind of fun to get that done. Action 3.3, engagement of families of multilingual learners. We've talked about this amazing reclassification ceremony that we had in the fall with over 150 people there, and food and activities and support for families. The amazing Jorge has supported us a lot with making sure that our Spanish-speaking families have support for technology, for navigating district systems, making sure they can access Parent Square, all of those kinds of things, anything that they need to sign up for. And then we are refining our systems for requesting interpretation and translation services. Trying to streamline that, make it easy, make sure that anytime a family needs support with translation or interpretation, we can get that for them.
Under 3.2, are we getting the adequate support from the county to continue the equity work without any pressures to remove some of these programs from our processes? Okay.
From the county, from the state, you know, it's really clear that the support is there. There may be some shifts sometimes in language. You know, I'm finding myself starting to talk about belonging more than I am DEI, but you know, that hasn't shifted for us in Ross Valley, and I don't think it's shifted in the county or the state level either. And all of the policies that are in place, you know, are still there as protections, and we're making that clear. And actually, it's kind of an interesting thing with our ELA program. One of the programs that we were considering piloting, Melina reached out to them and they said that they were having to change all of their book titles. And then another program was also making a lot of shifts around what's coming out nationally. Our program, the only shifts they've made is to shift a little bit of the searching, that, keywords and things that might come up in searching, but the core texts are staying, and it's a really beautiful set of diverse texts.
Okay.
So that's one of our reasons for really wanting that program.
Right.
Because they mean it. They're a nonprofit. So
Thank you.
Do you see any correlation in the data that you're getting back on attendance through either the empathy interviews or whatever, and the social emotional learning and sense of belonging feedback from the student surveys and things like that? Is there any cross-referencing of those to see?
I'm not sure. I think what we have learned, and it's not a surprise, is that, when we really reach out to families and work with them and we take the time to make those phone calls and learn whatever we can, and really express how much we value them and want their child in school, we're able to increase attendance for those families. So that's for folk who are just having a difficult time getting their kids to school. There's another set of attendance issues we have that's very different around family trips in Tahoe and those kinds of things. Those are different conversations, but conversations that our principals are for sure having.
I was just wondering also the use of things like empathy interviews and qualitative feedback versus just the surveys that we do with the chicks and healthy kids. Those, whether we see a similar type of shift in belonging and connection to school with using those kinds of things. It's a lot harder.
I don't know if with our empathy interviews and focal student work, if we've been able to quantify it in that way yet, but that's a really good question.
Yeah.
All right, so what's next? In terms of those three areas, really pretty straightforward. We are going to implement our new ELA program for K-5 and our new math program for 6-8. All of this work that our elementary teachers have been doing on prioritizing standards is going to help us to shift our report cards. So this summer we have a team of fabulous teachers that are going to be working on the math portion of the report card and characteristics of a learner, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Characteristics of a learner. And some of the general pieces we're going to hold off on ELA because we're just getting a new program under our belts and that sort of thing. But really making sure that our report card, the priority standard is going to tell us, we're going to make sure every kid is getting these, like these are the big boulders. And that's what should show up on the report card. Like when I was teaching 7th grade math, angle relationships. I love angle relationships, but it's not a boulder. It's something that it's nice to know. And then growing our learning teams. All of this work, we now have data in a way that we never have before, and it's really important to be using that data to inform instruction. So that continues. But our learning teams are also teams that are digging into new curriculum. So having our 5th grade teachers together in a room saying, okay, here's what's working for me, here's what's not working for me, what have you tried? That sort of thing, trading tips and practices. In wellness, we're gonna really try moving forward with the development of an SEL program, whether that means adopting a specific program or that means adopting parts of programs or building parts of programs or identifying various areas. Continue a district-wide sharing of practices that create a sense of belonging, and the pilot, I think I mentioned of the culture of belonging curriculum that comes from Tanisha Tate. And then community engagement, we are on our final year of Panorama Education, and there's strong interest in trying out a different survey tool. We're looking at likely youth truth, which is one that many of our Marin County districts use. So that's on the horizon. And then we have launched a special education advisory committee, and that's going to be really important work for the coming year.
I think the one thing I want to say is that, sometimes personally I get buried in the minutia of the day to day, and it's, okay, I got to solve this problem or respond to this thing. And the last, handful of weeks of the school year has been a little cloudy because of, the car accident, the parcel tax, and it's just, made things feel a little bit different than the majority of the year. But when you look at this, the overwhelming amount of work that's been done by our teachers, by our administrators, by our parents is pretty remarkable. That is a lot of accomplishment in a year that was full of a lot of big things. So it just I'm sitting here kind of listening and reflecting and feeling really proud of what we've done together. And this is a good reminder, even though these last few weeks have been a little bit more challenging, to just say wow, the people of this district are really amazing and accomplished a lot this year.
Very clear. And so appreciated.
Yep. I think that's all I have. Any other questions?
When we first started down this journey, especially being one of the earlier members of the parent guardian task force, the issues that we were dealing with, day-to-day walls our kids were hitting, I just want to make sure that we all are, it's not perfect, but we are seeing progress, right? And we are seeing our kids notably mentioning how much they feel more of a sense of a community, part of a community. And that took a lot to move that forward. And I think that this is really demonstrating that it's taken a while. But I feel confident that it can only get better. Let's just acknowledge that. It was not pretty for a while. Yeah.
I appreciate the emphasis too on keeping that history alive and keeping that where did we come from and how have we gotten here part of it. So it can both, like you said, celebrate that there has been momentum and yet we, and we'll keep going kind of thing. It's not like, okay, we're done, but it definitely keeps connection to where the effort started, where and why.
Yeah. And we're in a place now, I think, in history that we're not trying to catch up and emulate what's happening in the greater world. I think we have to protect what we've put together so far, to protect us from what's happening in the greater world, which is a very different pivot, but I think we've built a strong foundation to do that. And I hope that we look at it that way as well. Protect what we've built, because it can easily be dismantled on so many levels, as we know. So this is whatever we can do, I think, on our side to keep that going is what we can do, right?
Yep. Okay, so for this one, usually we have public comment, but I think we have actually a hearing we have to do this time. So I'm gonna move, let's see, I have to open a public hearing on our local control and accountability plan. Per Education Code EC sections 42127 and 52062, two separate governing board public meetings held at least one day apart are now required for the school district budget. Sorry about that. Wrong script. Let's see. No,
it's the right.
Okay, sorry, it's the same. All right. Are now required for the school district budget hearing and budget adoption. In addition, the LCAP public hearing must occur at the same meeting as the budget public hearing, and the LCAP adoption must occur at the same meeting at the budget adoption. The LCAP item must precede the budget item at each meeting. The public hearings require 72 hours public notice, and both the 2025-26 budget and the 2025-26 LCAP must be adopted on or before July 1st, 2025. So I now call the public hearing open at 8:05. Do I have anybody who would like to come up with a comment? All right. Seeing no comment, I now call the public hearing closed. So we're moving to discussion or action on this one. I don't think there's any action on this, but
No action.
up for discussion for the board here now.
I mean, I think it's great work. I mean, you guys have we've all done a lot this year, through a lot. So it's awesome to see.
Appreciate it being a living, working planning process, not just a check the box for state compliance, regardless of the reading that we just had to do with opening hearings and that kind of stuff. But it definitely feels like it's an active tool that we use, and it comes across in the way that it's presented too, thoughtfully. And I've seen it at the superintendent's council meetings and that, other places. So definitely feels like a guiding document. Guiding work.
One thing that I've said to Julie a few times here is that, having worked in other districts, the simplicity and clarity of our LCAP is something to be really proud of.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is due in part to the cabinet team and Julia for really being the brains behind writing this. And what it does is it helps keep our teachers focused on a few things to do them really well, as opposed to juggling 15 different initiatives. And I think we should be proud of the simplicity and clarity of this LCAP. And I think it helps us stay focused on the most important things.
Okay. So we're just here. We're just having a hearing tonight, and then the next time we do the adoption. All right. Thank you.
And this gives both the public and the board opportunity to give us feedback on what you'd like to see in LCAP.
Mhm.
If you have any changes, then we have time to go back, make adjustments, and bring it for a vote at the next meeting.
Great.
Just impressed by the work that we've done this year, so thank you to you and your teams. Much appreciated as teachers working on this. So with that, I will move us on to our next item, which is staff presentation and public hearing, preliminary 2025-26 district budget, reserves and multi-year projection for 2026-27 and 27-28.
Going to move over here. Does that mean no. I usually speak at the same time. I will try and speak as loud as possible. I know I have a tendency to not speak real loud. So tonight we're going to talk about the 25-26 adopted budget. It is also known as the estimated actuals for the current fiscal year, so just in case you see that in other places. And so we'll talk about different things, including the demographic data, our revenues and expenses, fund balances, and also our risks. In terms of the demographics, the first thing that's important for us to note is looking at what our enrollment and our attendance is and has been, and looking at it in terms of our attendance rates. And so what is important to note is that we see this big drop in our attendance rate in 22-23, which really has to do with COVID. In 21-22, we were held harmless. And so that 96.2 is really where our attendance was prior to COVID. And then you see the gradual improvement of our attendance rate. And so moving forward, we did have a 95.1% attendance rate for 24-25. And with built into my projections for our multi-year, we show 95.2%. So just a slight tick up. It's still under that those averages in the past. And the other thing that's also important to note is you see both an increase in our attendance and our enrollment based upon that demographic study that we had done. And it's really as a result of the increase in our TK students. And so you're going to start to see a bubble of children coming up that are a little bit larger than the ones that are exiting. So we'll start to see a tick up in our enrollment overall.
And I just want to go back to that slide. When we did the budget advisory committee in the beginning of the year, really the core issue was county-wide low revenue, the lowest revenue in the county. That's really the core of the budget issue. All these conversations that we have, that's the core of the issue. And there's three ways to increase our revenue. One, increase our attendance rate. Check. We've done that. and we'll continue to push hard to get that to pre-pandemic levels. 2 is increase enrollment. Check. We're on the path, and it looks like things should be moving forward. We're going to continue to do good marketing to increase that. Plus, we've got COVID baby boom and, just people moving into the community. 3rd is the parcel tax. So 2 out of the 3, we're moving in the right direction to increase revenue because that's really the core of the budget issue. And this graph right here articulates 2 of those 3 revenue increases.
I know that it's a molecular look through, but that 1% to get us back to the pre-pandemic, do we know what the characteristics of that absenteeism is within that small percentage? Is it driven perhaps by socioeconomic disparities? I mean, what do we know how we could perhaps trigger an uptick there? Because it's flat, right?
I'm showing it flat as we go forward. It could in fact go up, but really the biggest thing to focus on is between 22-23 and 24-25. You see almost a 1% per year jump.
Yeah.
So if we continue that in that 25-26 year, it could go up to 96. And I think the thing that made a difference was from the district level, we communicated it quite a bit.
Yep.
From the site level, principals communicated it. And I think really the biggest impact was teachers communicating to parents to say, hey, we need your kids here in school so they can learn. And then secondarily, it helps us with revenue as well. So I think it's really communication issue and behavior change, right? Families got used to during the pandemic, taking a longer weekend and, being a little bit more lax about sickness. And we just need to get back to that behavior that we had pre-pandemic, which is taking some time.
But I think the return to work policies as well, if both parents are back at work, sorry kid, you gotta go to school today.
Sneeze on Tommy.
Right, sneeze on your neighbors. So there's something to that too, right? But nationally, we've seen just the numbers are still down, but that may go up a little bit more. I don't think we'll ever get to pre-pandemic levels now because it's people are more aware of, hey, if you're sick, maybe you shouldn't go to school. Which is a good thing.
I was gonna say, my kids were home more when they got, if you got COVID, you stayed home longer.
Yeah.
You made sure you weren't gonna give it to someone else.
Yep.
So.
And I'm gonna get into the weeds. I wasn't going to, but if you look at the criteria and standards, one of the criteria is looking at our attendance rate, and they look at our 3-year history of our attendance rate, and then what they want to do is come in right at the middle, and then they give you 0.5% from that. Well, if I'm at 93.1, 94.2, and 95.1, my average is actually 94.2, and my 0.5 is 94.7. I'm actually above that criteria. So it is a little aggressive, but I think it's warranted based upon this. But what wouldn't be warranted is showing the continued growth beyond that in the out years. That doesn't mean that I can't change it if I start to see the enrollment in attendance rates moving forward. For example, at our P1 attendant.
But you have to have strong justification for deviating from the standard procedure for doing these assumption estimations.
Correct.
To be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is taking a look at what our funded ADA is versus our P2 ADA, because there is a difference when you're in declining enrollment. You have that the smoothing where you have either your funded ADA is based upon your prior year attendance, your current year attendance, or the prior 3 years worth of attendance. And during COVID, we also had in 21-22 was the you were held harmless for 1 year, and then they started the 3-year smoothing, and you saw it actually come down. And so as you look, 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25, now we're back at where we really should be in terms of our attendance and our funding. And that really does create that fiscal cliff that I wanted to talk about in a few minutes, but I just wanted to kind of lay that groundwork so people understand that we were actually getting paid for students that we didn't have at one point. So as you start to get into our revenues and expenses, the first thing I wanted to do is kind of talk about the Budget Advisory Committee. and the work that the people on that committee did. The first thing is we met 3 times. 3 times last school year. And then we met 2 additional times this year. And the charge in the current year was, can we come up with cuts? First, 500,000. And then also, if we have to make additional cuts, what would those look like? And so in terms of the cuts on the previous slide, it was that those were the items that were kind of high on their list. And then as we started looking at it, we said, okay, these top 2 items can get you to the 510,000. Those were the highest priorities, those items on there. And then are there additional cuts that we could make that could get us an additional $200,000 in cuts? And so the highlighted items, so you see the top 4, and the third one, which is Guiding Coalition, we currently have one of the 2 Guiding Coalition additional FTEs unfilled. And so that one is on the list. That's why it's 0.2 or 0.4. And then you also see library specialists and kindergarten aides down at the bottom. And so it's a combination of them to get us to that $200,000. And I want to point out that all of these cuts are built into our budget and our multi-year projections. And so if you did approve the adopted budget in the next the next board meeting, you would be accepting these cuts as well.
And I think one thing I want to mention about the cuts is that $700,000 is kind of a conservative depth of cut. We probably should cut deeper than that, which would mean taking a look at intervention teaching, taking a look at the electives at Whitehill. That would help solve our structural deficit. And you'll see later, we're still running structural deficit. So I just want to be clear that $700,000 hurts. These are real cuts that have real impacts that nobody on the budget advisory committee wanted to make. And we probably should go even deeper than the 700,000. But I think based on where we're at, we can weather this fiscal cliff, which is really 2 years, you'll see in another slide, with this 700,000. So it's kind of the deepest cut we need to make without going too deep and too much pain.
And the 700, just clarify, 700 is not on top of the 500, that's 700.
It's 500 and 200.
Got it.
Yep.
Just make sure.
And I'm going to go back one slide as well. If you look on here, counseling programs, we did move 2 counselors' salaries into one-time funds. And so what it did is it shifted it out of the general fund unrestricted. So it has relief on the budget and we still have the positions, but we do have to start looking for another source of funding for them. But currently they're going to be funded according to this budget under one-time sources.
For 2 years.
For 2 years, because it's a
next
grant,
year
it's
and
a
the fall.
grant that disappears.
Okay.
So that gives us time to potentially go out, get a new parcel tax, and take the counselors off the one-time funds and bring them back into the general fund.
Right.
So it kind of holds them harmless, but it kind of puts them on, it puts those positions on thin ice, which is our community wants the counseling to stay. I want the counseling to stay. The board wants the counseling to stay. But this is kind of a budget maneuver we needed to make in order to weather this fiscal cliff.
And Chris, is it clear, so YES did not fully fund the art and music program this year? Is that 171,000?
They have not for a number of years.
Right.
And it's not by choice. They've also felt the same
No, but that's something
cuts.
that we as a community, we could do more each year with YES. It's tough, I get it. But would that also help the 5th grade instrumental music program, or is that separate? Is that out of YES? That's not included in YES?
It would help to offset some of those additional costs. So it is included in there currently.
Okay.
So when families came to me right after the parcel tax didn't pass and said, hey, what can I do to help the issue?
Yeah.
The easiest thing, donate to YES to offset the general fund obligation that we put towards the arts and music. So that's the best way.
For the first time in history, YES is actually surpassing its goals of fundraising, so this is helping a lot.
Yep.
And they've done a really good job this year.
Yes, they really have.
And they've also felt the same drop in enrollment with their parents. So it's been challenging for them, and with COVID, finances were difficult for a lot of people. So
Could you go back to the other slide where the things were crossed out and just say a few words about that?
some of the positions, you can't make the cuts currently. For example, if we were to cut FTEs, we potentially would have to lay positions off, and we're past those deadlines. So it's really not an option for some things, but we are looking at positions as they come up. And if there's things that a position is open and we can cut it, we do that. The other thing that we've already done and is built into the budget is the tech platforms. We've already done that. So we're just making sure that people know that those really shouldn't be included in that 500.
The White Hill positions, it's kind of interesting because John and Mary Claire, as we're seeing enrollment in middle school go down because there's kind of a dip in the number of students that are in that cohort. So John and Mary Claire are right-sizing the White Hill staff, and essentially through attrition, we've cut 2 FTE. But we're not taking credit for the $250,000 of cuts there because it got automatically offset by the increase in TK staffing of 4. So we're basically right-sizing our TK by expanding it and right-sizing middle school by contracting it. And as those TKers kind of matriculate up, we'll have to expand middle school when they get there because that cohort will be bigger. But that's, we didn't want to take credit for that $250,000 because it's not true, because we've reduced it at White Hill but had to increase it at TK.
Got it.
And so revenues, what's really important to note is that your 2 largest sources of revenues are your parcel tax and your local control funding formula. And the other thing I want to point out is that under the other local revenues, you have your YES donations built into that as well. So that's part of that 2.5 million. Looking at our revenues, and I wanted to break apart our unrestricted revenues, the 2 largest sources of unrestricted revenues in essence, even though the parcel tax ends up on the categorical side because we have to spend it a certain way, we have flexibility on it. These are the dollars that become available for salaries and benefits. And so what I really want to stress is that if you look at the local control funding formula, which is the bottom blue numbers, and look at between 2022-23 and 25-26, that's flat. And so what has happened is our revenues have leveled off because of that 3-year smoothing and the state giving us credit for higher attendance than what we really should have been paid under normal circumstances, but with time it levels out. And so that's really critical. The other thing I want to point out is if you look all the way to the right, you see $5 million at the top for parcel tax. This is our multi-year projection for parcel tax right now. Next year, when I'm sitting before the board, if we don't have a parcel tax that has been approved, that $5 million will disappear in the following fiscal year. So the lack of our parcel tax not having passed really is an existential threat to the health of the district overall.
And then that would impact our reserve percentage as well.
Correct.
Significantly.
Yes.
Well, I think when Chris says existential threat,
that's
The state would have to loan us money basically and take us over.
yeah, and I think we went through 6 meetings of absolute arm wrestling to get $700,000 of cuts. There are not $5 million worth of cuts. There just aren't. And this all goes back to the core issue of the budget that I talked about earlier. It's the lowest revenue in Marin County. It's a problem with the LCFF calculator and our low property tax basis because of low turnover in our community. That's the core issue. That's it. It's not combining districts. It's not the salaries of administrators. It's not, wild spending. It's not mismanagement. It is only low revenue. Many of those issues we cannot solve without state level change. The only thing we have control over is the size of the parcel tax. And with the zero parcel tax, it's exactly what Rachel says. It's a loan from the state and state takeover. And I'm not being dramatic, because what you heard me say in September about cuts is exactly the same cuts that we're proposing in this budget. And people might have thought I was being a little dramatic then, but we're executing exactly on what I said. And the same thing will be true next year, because depending on the timing, Chris may have to take this off, because if the board decides to go out even for a June election, I'm not sure that Chris's budget presentation will be after the election results are finalized. It'll probably be before, which means we'll have a negative budget in that for next year. It's a real issue, and I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I also want to be very clear about how big of a deal that is.
When does it trigger state takeover?
When you present it or when it happens?
Yeah.
It would be in time. I could talk to the county about that. The first thing that would happen would be the county would certify us with either a qualified or a negative budget.
Right.
And if we ended up getting to a place where we needed to take a loan, that would be kind of the trigger. So the fact that it would be third year out is scary, but it's not right away.
Okay.
And it's not, I mean, that is the reality. And so having it be very clear on graphs and charts while you're just talking about it is real. So it's not, you can't obscure it when that orange stuff goes away.
'Cause even,
and you are talking literally about we are sitting here approving, if that comes, I mean, we would be sitting approving a budget that would knowingly put us in receivership with the state if the parcel tax doesn't pass, period. And just to say that out loud, put it on paper, that's just the reality of what people need to know would happen.
because even if you look at the $5 million, like I've said, there's not 5 million of cuts. Even if you close 2 schools, you don't even come close to half of that $5 million. And this goes back to the core issue of, because we don't have a large number of low-income students or a large number of English language learners, multilingual learners, our LCFF calculator's low, which sits us at the bottom of that inverted curve we've looked at all year. And because our property tax basis is so low, because we have low housing turnover, we sit at the bottom we basically have the lowest possible revenue any school district could have. That's the core of the issue. And we have to increase revenue by attendance, enrollment, or parcel tax.
And the obligation.
Yes, and.
The financial obligation to the charter is factored into where in here.
So in terms of the financial obligation to the charter, currently moving forward in 25-26, it will be what's known as a cash flow issue, because I will have to give in lieu property taxes roughly $2 million to the charter, but I will get backfilled from the state because I'm local control funding formula as opposed to community funding.
It'll be a wash.
It'll be a wash. It'll just be a cash flow issue when the money leaves.
So we don't have to worry about that at that point.
Correct.
For how long?
It isn't until you stay in community funded status that it becomes a non-cash flow issue and a real revenue issue.
Okay, all right.
And I don't see that happening for a number of years. And I am going to talk in a little bit later about the way our budget is in terms of state aid, community funded, and you'll see that.
Wait, are we paying for the charter school?
We will be, in terms of in lieu property taxes.
Yeah.
It's cash flow. The way that the law is written, it comes out of our bank account, and then the state reimburses us. It's the way the law is written, done. Yeah.
The way I think about the charter school, and this has nothing to do with their program or, any assessment I have of the school at all, period. But essentially the way I think about it is that the Ross Valley School District of San Anselmo and Fairfax has 4 elementary schools and a 5th elementary school, essentially. So you have a school district that has 5 elementary schools in it in terms of enrollment, right? And obviously the charter pulls students from other districts as well. But we already have relatively small schools, so to have 5 working elementary schools makes it really challenging for the charter school. Fiscally, it's very difficult for them, and it's fiscally very difficult for us. So it just kind of illuminates this issue that having 5 elementary schools with only essentially 1,100 kids in elementary school is just too many elementary schools. So it's a real conundrum to have that situation. It definitely has an impact on us. So does, Hartwood, so does St. Anselm's, so does, all the privates. Like, there's a lot of competition in the area for students, and that's why increasing enrollment is really critical part of increasing our revenue.
So moving on, in terms of our expenses, and this kind of goes back to what Tyler was talking about a few minutes ago, our single largest source of expenses really is people. And if you're looking at cutting $5 million, there really isn't $5 million that you could cut outside of people. And the other thing that you see up here is almost $5 million in services and other. And that's one of the things that people talk about. Okay, those are consultants. It isn't just consultants. It's things in one, they also throw legal fees in there. It is legal fees, but it's also special education contractors for unfilled positions, such as teachers, instructional aides, speech language pathologists, psychologists. It's our non-public school students, the payments on those. It's our special education transportation costs. It's our property and liability insurance. It's our utilities, gas, electric, water, sewer, trash. So it's a lot of different things, and you can't really cut. There really is nothing in that area to cut as well that will get you to that $5 million. So I just wanted to point that out.
I think some people make a critique on the consultants or the services and other, assuming that it's like a contract with a consultant who's coming in to do work for us, but it's just not. We have very, very, very few contracts, and most of those contracts are paid out of grant funds. So I appreciate Chris brought that list of what these things are. Like PG&E is in there. We can't not have PG&E.
So then you start looking at our fund balance. Yes.
Just that is super helpful. You might consider adding a slide with those categories as headers and then just bullet points underneath each one. Just as a, hey, here's a list of all of the general list of the things under each of these categories. Because even the other one of something outgo, they're budget words. And then you could put regular English underneath it. Might be helpful.
And there is room on the slide to do it, so. In terms of our fund balance, before we get into our fund balance, when you start looking at your fund balances, what you're really talking about are your multi-year projections and then what comes out at the end of your fund balances for those fiscal years. And so this is a slide from school services that they put something like this in almost every single budget presentation. And the reason is that when you're looking at your multi-year projections, it really is simply calculations on those out years. And so there's lots of things that go into those calculations. You look at your economic assumptions like your cost of living adjustment, CPI, you have locally calculated data point estimates such as your step and column costs and your utility costs, et cetera. And then you also have decisions that have been made if you're cutting positions, you're cutting programs. And so those are the types of things that get built into multi-year projections. But really what it's not, and they always stress this, is it's not a prediction. It doesn't say that we will get to this. It's not that crystal ball. And so I just want to point that out. And so when you look at projections, at multi-year projections, they do change. They change constantly. And honestly, I have a new data point that if I was to have additional time, I would be making a change to my local control funding formula based upon that data I received today. And it has to do with our property taxes. So it's not a material change, but it would be something that changes. And so looking at it, different things that affect your multi-year and between every single period are looking at things like your step and column costs, your increasing in utility costs, your property and liability insurance, special education costs, your COLAs. And we also have some changes that have happened between our multi-year projections in terms of transitional kindergarten add-on dollars within those LCFF funds and our P2 average daily attendance. And so going back to the transitional kindergarten add-on, I've included the additional dollars assuming that it's full implementation of the TK program. The BASC, which is it's the county superintendents groups, they put out what are known as, I'm blanking out on the term. It's what they want you to build into your budget. And they suggested that everybody not include the TK program add-on dollars. And that's because there's no guarantee that they'll do it. The problem with that is that in order to get funded for the TK program, you have to bring down your class size to 20-to-1 adult to student ratios, which means that you're hiring more teachers, you're hiring more instructional aides, and if you fail in any one class, you lose all of your TK revenues. So it's an all or none.
What's the measurement of failure?
100%.
Perfection.
We have
21 kids in a classroom with one teacher and one aide is failure.
Yes. That would be considered a fail. And so we've built them in. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that that's there and that is a risk in our budget.
Okay.
That's something I'll talk about in a minute. But so when looking at our general fund, one thing that I added at the bottom of this slide is you see 23-24 we were state aid. In the current year we're community funded. Then within our multi-year projections, I'm showing us flip back into community funded status in 26-27 and then back out in 27-28. So as you start to look at those revenues at the top, the LCFF revenues, you really see in 26-27 that large increase in your LCFF revenues. That's because of that flipping into community funded status. But then it's flat again in 27-28. So this is one of those things, as you're flipping in and out, your revenues are going to change a lot. And so that's just something to remember. The other thing that I want to point out, earlier we talked about the LCFF revenues between 22-23 and 25-26 being flat. If you look at the top in terms of the revenues. The other thing I want to point out, look at certificated, classified, and benefits. So your salaries and benefits. You see large increases across the board all the way through. And so we did give salary adjustments, but at the same time we weren't seeing the revenue increases. So I just want to point that out. That is something that's there.
That's a Cliff Notes. Flat revenue, increasing costs.
Well, the supplies for 2024-25 at 1,378,000, then dropping back down to 689 as a projection. What is it? All the new AV equipment that we had to install? And what is that? The $250 con?
That's not unusual. What you see are things like carryover dollars under lottery instructional materials, and so I might have $400,000 sitting there, and we show that we're going to spend it down, and then the next year, rather than having your carryover dollars, it's back down to your new revenues. So you see some fluctuation like that. That's not unusual. You also have other things like exactly what you shared. We do have some of the projector costs that are built into those budgets, and they're projected to be spent out. So that's not unusual in those categories. The other thing you'll see are the services. What I've done is I've included the positions that are currently open in special education and kind of moved those services out and back up into the categories above. And you really see it under the classified salary positions. And so likely what will happen at first interim, it'll kind of be all adjusted back around. But really, we need to show those open positions. So the other thing that's really critical to note is those net changes in fund balances. You do see 21, 22, 22, 23, you see the large gains. That was because we were receiving additional dollars beyond what we were, what our attendance showed we should be getting as a result of COVID. But then 23, 24 loss, an even larger loss in 24, 25, and 25, 26. That is your fiscal cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to see the right sizing back with the increase in your LCFF revenues.
And just this deficit spending that started last school year and is running all the way through the budget to 27, 28, we need to stop doing that, because we're going to need to actually rebuild our reserves. You'll see in the multi-year projection, there's a point where the reason we're able to weather this storm is because we had a 25% reserve. If we ran at the state minimum or even at 10%, which is the board's recommendation, that starts to get really lean. If there's another fiscal cliff, we could be, a negative or qualified budget really quickly. You can see how fast we can spend down those reserves.
And so here, when looking at these reserves, what you see is we're at 23.1% is our actual reserve in 23-24. Then you see our estimate at 16.1, and then you see it drop all the way down to 6.3. And so that is our estimate at this particular point. I do think that where we're going to close is probably closer to the 17.1% range. We should have dollars that drop to the bottom, but that's really where we're at. So kind of going back to Tyler's point, go ahead, Tyler.
Even with $700,000 of cuts, we're spending too much. And that's to my point earlier, that we probably should have gone deeper than 700,000, but I didn't want to go so deep that we had to cancel intervention programs for students or elective programs. But we've got to solve this problem with increased revenue.
Is there a risk of not doing it and then perhaps having community members, we didn't, the small additional percentage that we didn't get to pass the parcel tax this time, of people who may have not been paying attention or who may have not been thinking like that big of a deal or whatever all the reasons were, having a similar perception.
I think there's two ways you can,
like just saying we're going to assume it's not, we have to create a budget that assumes it doesn't, well, I guess we can't create a budget. You can't create a budget that assumes it doesn't pass because of that $5 million you can't cut.
And we do have the parcel tax in this for the remainder of this 3-year multi-year projection. So we can project it out. But next year, we will not be making an assumption that anything passes, even if it's just a direct continuation of the current parcel tax amount and structure.
It's gone.
And to your earlier point, I think there's two ways you can go when a parcel tax doesn't pass. One way you can really inflict, some budgetary challenges by cutting deep and saying to the community, here's the consequence. The other side of the coin is, okay, let's be fiscally responsible, make cuts, not hurt students, but kind of take a risk, kick the can down the road a little bit. We've taken that second option. We have not said we're going to cut to show the community how much we're upset, because we're not upset. 62.5% of people voted yes. The majority of people are behind an increased parcel tax. So what we wanted to do was put students first, make the requisite cuts to slow down the deficit spending to give us enough time to go back out, increase revenues in a way that is still fiscally responsible to our community members, and then go from there. So I think, there are probably districts out there that will say didn't pass, we're gonna show you the consequence, and that's not the approach we wanna take.
And I guess I wasn't thinking of it that way as much as I was initially. My thinking is revised from your earlier statements, but initially more in terms of we'll make the cuts and then we'll re-up when the parcel tax comes in, was what I was originally thinking.
Yeah, okay.
However, not as like a, I'm mad and I want to show you, but just kind of like, hey, let's be super realistic here, and if we get the parcel tax, great, we'll redo all that. But my thinking was changed based on our just earlier statements of saying 5 million, we cannot cut enough to make you can't take that approach. I mean, if it was 900,000, maybe you could take that approach, but with the 5 million loss of revenue, there is no amount of cuts that we could make and then backfill another. You can't make that wild swing of 5 million cut and then add 5 million. So you just,
I think we probably, to be most fiscally responsible, we probably should have cut, instead of 700, maybe 1.4 or 1.5 would have been like the most fiscally responsible, and we would have, almost eliminated the deficit spending. That probably would have been the best. But we're kind of saying we're going to cut deep, but not so deep that it, and I think that's kind of.
But you would only have eliminated the deficit spending for the next 2 or 3 years while we still have our parcel tax.
That's right. That's
when
right.
that ended, we would still fall off that
Yep.
$5 million cliff. So it's kind of like, I can understand the thinking behind why inflict 3 years of pain when you have a chasm after that is unfillable without a parcel tax. So I can understand why you would think that, take that approach too. So.
And then we also have March 15th as kind of something that hangs out there as well. That's the deadline that we would, if we were going to be doing layoffs, we would have to take action as a board and district by that date. So that is one of those things that's out there. So we do have that option next year, but on this slide, one other thing I want to point out is, although we're at 6.3% in 27-28, remember that I was talking about the TK revenues for 2 years. So those are built in. That is a risk. So if those get pulled off between now and when the budget gets adopted, those revenues will have to be pulled out, and I will likely be coming and doing a 45-day budget revision for you. So, and that would drop that reserve.
What's the likelihood of that?
The Legislative Analyst's Office is saying to do it. What they're saying to do is give additional one-time dollars, which would allow us to be able to put those in. What is the likelihood? I think it's slim, because the governor has made this his push.
Yes, his push and mandate.
This is one of his projects that he has really pushed as a leader, and I don't think he's willing to pull it out, because they know that there is that all or nothing rule for TK funding, that either you have the staff or you don't, and districts have had to go forward with the hiring. So I don't believe it's something that they'll pull out.
Okay.
That's a personal opinion. But we also have other risks to the budget, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Looking at our fund balances, kind of going back to 22-23, we were sitting right around this average, and then you do see the drop. But this is the average for elementary districts in the fund balances in 23-24. It might seem high to have 25, but remember, there's a lot of districts in the state, and it is a matter of having the ability to have time to be able to react. That's really what that larger reserve allows you, is the ability to have time to react when you have surprises. So, and that kind of goes back to Tyler's point earlier about how we're responding with our budget.
Okay.
Yep, I'm sorry.
And when we were doing our last round of budget projections with assumption of parcel tax passing, we were looking at then building our reserves back up into this. So if
what it did is it didn't allow you to drop the way we were, and then slowly we could build them up.
But how long do you think it would take us to get back, if we assume the parcel tax funding, or when we were assuming parcel tax funding, how long was it going to take us to get back up to our at least board policy? What I'm getting at is we have a board policy of a certain amount. If that's just not relevant, do we need to acknowledge that, or can we hold it aspirationally, I mean, how long does it take us?
So if you look at 25, 26, your unrestricted balance is 3.274 million, so three and a quarter million. And so what you would need to do is be able to build up, in essence, $1.25 million between 27, 28 and 25, 26. Do you see that difference there?
Yeah, the 10 and the 6, yeah.
So it's achievable.
Okay.
And it would all depend on what we settled with our union partners for, and so there's just a lot of different factors. But I do think that the board should consider, depending on how things roll out in the next year, 18 months, setting a goal of reestablishing the 10% if we get below that.
And I mean, on an optimistic side, with all of the community aware of all of this, it gives us an opportunity to, as a community, agree that that's not just a board policy, but that this is an appropriate level of reserves and it's built into our planning, and so that there's not ongoing back and forth and back and forth and back. Should we not? It's like we've had conversations and we collectively have all agreed, not just we up here on the dais, but everybody understands why we have it.
So moving on, risks and next steps. I did want to talk about the risks to our budget, both that we can kind of control a little bit as a community and district, then also state controlled and the national. When looking at our district and community control, really it's looking at the enrollment growth, and that's something that we've included in our budget, but if the numbers come in different, then that has a negative or positive impact on our budget. Also our attendance rates, and so that's really going to be critical to push the attendance as we move forward, just as we have currently, and really stress the need. I know I talk about it as a revenue issue more than anything, really. If your kids aren't at school, you can't learn. So it really is a need for education, but it does help us from a revenue standpoint as well. And then also property tax growth. And so there's some wiggle room in there. I did receive today an update on my property taxes. The county of Marin gave us an additional estimate, and the property tax amount that I have in there is 4.08%. And I have that in my three-year projections as well. And they're now estimating it to be 4.22. So that will likely probably be something I add to my first interim budget in December.
Which is good news.
It's good news. It's not material because remember, as we're state aid funded in 2 of those years, it doesn't impact us necessarily there. And it's about a $30,000 increase in that second year of the multi-year. But it does help. And then looking at the state, the TK add-on dollars is something that's a risk for us. The other thing that is kind of the elephant in the room is the Los Angeles wildfire impacts. When we had the wildfires up here in the Bay Area, the state allowed everybody to file their taxes later. Instead of the April 15th deadline, they pushed it into October. As a result of that, the state revenues came in substantially less than what they had projected. They're doing the same thing again with the LA wildfires, and nobody knows what those impacts are going to be. And so there are potential negative impacts out there that we don't know of. The other thing that are important to note in terms of the national impacts, you have the tariffs, the impacts on that in terms of what people are doing with their personal finances and how we spend our dollars. The other thing that is impacting us are both the DOGE cuts, that's having real impacts upon school districts. And then it looks like we might be entering a recession. All indicators are we're going into that. You're starting to see a lot more chatter, a lot of economic indicators are showing that we're going into that. So those are real possibilities as we move forward, and they do have negative impacts upon our budget, but they need to be known before we can enter them.
In relation to tariffs for budget planning, we have a bridge made of steel that is coming into Brookside. Has there been any discussions with that amount going up for materials, given the 50% tariff on steel that came out yesterday, day before.
Yeah, we haven't looked at that yet, honestly.
Okay.
And when the time comes, that's gonna be a project that gets bid. We'll know what that impact is. I know what you're asking.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
I mean, you guys are really good at pivoting, but if we're going to be putting a bid out on something that might have a 50% increase in cost because of the materials, we might want to think about pivoting some of those things to, I don't know. I went across that bridge today. I don't want to prolong building it out, but it is something that I definitely thought about with the tariffs. I don't know how long they'll last. I don't know if it's going to be a taco or not, but 50% is pretty big.
What I can do is I can reach out to our architect and feel out what those numbers look like.
Yeah, because that will really hit the money we have to spend on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
It's a great question though, and something honestly I hadn't had a chance to think about, but is
So many moving parts, Chris, but.
Yeah, with those like national unknown risk factors, at some point, would one of the recommending groups that tells you like, is this escalator and that escalator finally say, okay, based on the tariffs and whatever, and or a recession, you need to do an escalation factor for expenses higher than what we've done? Would that come out like in the May revise, or when? You don't have a crystal ball, but.
So they start looking at all of the COLA factors throughout the year. And the problem with the COLAs, which is why I think in my last budget presentation, I showed how the COLAs had changed from June to December to March to now. It's because those CPI factors and COLA factors start coming in at different periods. And so they might tell us at that point, budget more based upon X and Y coming in differently, but they're not going to know all of those other factors.
So these are just kind of the X and Y's that they would base it on, but they don't know when. Okay.
Yeah, there's something like 13 or 14 factors that go into that cost of living adjustment at the state level, and they come in throughout the year. And so the other thing that's really important to note is just what our budget timeline is. And so where we're at is currently again, I had talked about the adopted budget and estimated actuals being the same thing. Estimated actuals are the current year budget, adopted is for next year. They're all part of the same budget. And so those are due by July 1st, and then moving forward, the next one would be September 15th. So. And then, do we have any other questions?
You've been helpful answering them all the way along. Thank you.
I think we peppered you with them as we went.
Not a deliverer of great news, but it's the reality, and I appreciate the thought around what we can massage if possible.
I want to thank Chris for helping to lead the budget advisory committee with the recommended $700,000 of cuts. None of us want to make them. They're hard. This is not what any of us want to do. Would rather be expanding programs. And just want to restate one last time that the core issue is low revenue. We have to solve that problem. That's the problem we're trying to solve.
All right. No more questions. We have to hold a public hearing on this. So the public hearing topic is preliminary 2025-26 district budget and multi-year projections for 2026-27 and 2027-28. Per Education Code EC sections 42127 and 52062, two separate governing board public meetings held at least one day apart are now required for the school district budget hearings and budget adoption. In addition, the LCAP public hearing must occur at the same meeting as the budget public hearing, and the LCAP adoption must occur at the same meeting at the budget adoption. The LCAP item must precede the budget item in each meeting. The public hearings require 72 hours public notice, and both the 2020-25 2025-26 budget and the 2025-26 LCAP must be adopted on or before July 1st, 2025. I now call the public hearing open. Anybody would like to come up and speak, please do so.
Hi, thank you. PJ Pfeffer, parent of a Manor student. More detailed numbers, just wanted to provide a little bit of additional commentary somewhat based on the presentation. Obviously, I agree that the core issue is a lack of revenue, and anything that the board is considering are really tweaks on the margins, and like Trustee Hamilton said, like either way, if there's a $5 million cliff, none of this matters. It's not going to make any difference. You just sort of you can't prepare for that in any way. So I appreciate Chris is optimistic given what the requirements are. ADA numbers, keeping it above the 5% or 0.5% adjustment that is otherwise advised. And I think that there's reason to, be even more optimistic, not necessarily, writing it in the budget, just because state law changes have given a lot more opportunities to not have absences counted against students who are out of class, made it a lot easier to get independent study credit, and other ways to reduce those absence numbers. One revenue source that I've been thinking about recently that's not being considered is people who are denying the district and the state property tax revenue. In Fairfax, council member Frank Egger, longtime council member, has mentioned a number of times in the past few years, 300 to 400 sort of under the table rental units. And I think people don't really understand that that's taking money out of the pocket of people in the district. Just having a rental unit would change your assessed value for taxes, so your base tax rate would go higher. Taxes on the extra housing unit, all that's money for the district that it's not getting, despite the fact that these people in housing units really do exist in the community. There's never really much of an appetite for tax compliance, which I guess this technically would be, but I'd appreciate that. And just something I want to reiterate and consider, because the numbers look bad for 2 years and we do see an improvement. In reality, the numbers still won't be as bad as we expect. Chris mentioned a couple of changes he's expecting, and just based the estimated actuals we had last year, so the numbers that are the basis for this budget here. In last year's time, we're $1 million off. Like the fund, we're starting $600,000 or $6.7 million. Same adjustment as last year. It'd be
You still have the 30 seconds, you still have like 20 seconds left.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Quickly, I personally don't think a deeper cut would be more responsible, and I think even these cuts are dangerous. In every other context, including private schools, we see increased spending considered an investment that has a positive impact. And I've heard Manor parents already saying, "Did these cuts mean I should go to a private school, or at what point would they?" And I'm a public school absolutist, so I yell at them for saying that, but it's something to consider.
Thank you. Thanks, PJ. Do we have any other comments? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That was very sobering of a presentation. Are you available for children's parties? Really good. And I think we have a very large community here of very educated people. Oh, I broke Cobb too. Oops. I understand you don't want to make large cuts and, hurt the kids, hurt the district, and I agree with that. I think communication of the reality early and repeatedly to our parents in this community would go a long way towards the next effort, which kind of seems like the district's do or die moment. We need to get that next parcel tax to pass or it's done. There's no more district. It's kind of what it sounds like. So I would urge the board in the next effort to just communicate honestly, openly. It's a little bit of a, dire don't look up kind of story there, but I think people here are smart and they will understand and they will mobilize, to get our other, 60 some odd % of people to go vote. I was also curious whether or not we've looked at the CSS fund from the County Office of Education, if there's any, purchasing extra time. Chris, I think that is another important thing that you brought up, is what we need to do is buy time wherever we can. Cuts are a great way to, extend this out a little bit. Alternative revenue streams for a school district are a little bit few and far between. We're doing great jobs with the attendance. We're, getting in what we can. But I'm wondering what other opportunities exist out there that we could be looking at, we could use or utilize. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public hearing? Okay, seeing no more public comments, I now call the public hearing closed. All right, and then it comes back to the board for discussion. Do we have any discussion on this further?
I just want to make sure that, and Tyler, you've mentioned this a couple of times, if this parcel tax failed, if we got 40% or 50% of the vote, I would be in a very different place right now. I do firmly believe that we took the risk to go out for a special election. Turnout is important, and I think the turnout was not as high as we hoped. I think the support is there. I think that the strategy that going forward, we're going to try it again, but I think the communication and these things that we're talking about are very important to keep in the forefront of our minds, right? That this isn't, it'll be nice to have. It'll be nice to pay our teachers more. It'll be nice to do, this is, we're on the edge of the cliff that we've been talking about for years. And so I think the cut that we're making is deep enough, it's painful enough, without being dystopian or punitive. I don't think we should punish the children. I agree with you. And I don't think we should send a punitive message to the community. I think the community pretty much supports this. The numbers are there.
Yeah.
But I think that the work has to be done again. So, let's keep talking about this. Let's keep this on the tip of our tongues. Let's keep talking about why this is important. And I think we'll massage the message as we go back out for this. But, like I said, I wouldn't be feeling great if the percentage that was so close, it was close.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt that the community wants to see this.
I think that's where I could use help from the board as we move forward, because I am both wildly optimistic about this school district. To hear community members wondering whether they should go somewhere else, I would say, no, the future is bright here.
Yeah.
Trust me, the future is bright. And having to articulate the dire consequences of adding that next third year in. So there's a thread or needle to be thread there between what I consider great optimism for the district and this real big challenge that is dystopian. And so to the extent you all can give me feedback on my messaging and our work at the district, I'm wide open to hearing when I'm a little too dystopian or maybe a little overly optimistic. Let me know.
Yeah, and I do think that the general message needs to, I don't want to be on the defense, but there has been no fiscal mismanagement here. There has been no lack of conservative approach to our reserves to the point where we've lessened it to being negligent. We are just not funded well.
Yeah,
Period.
I think that I agree. I think that is the point that takes it out of, are you a good, well-performing district?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
The only issue is a $5 million parcel tax is what makes the revenue work. And we've had a parcel tax passed by this community for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that it will again. And at the same time, positioning it as, and if it doesn't, it is an existential threat. It's not a budget cutting action. It's not a exercise in where can we find funds. That's just not gonna do it.
No.
So I think that stark reality of parcel tax or bust, kind of, in a way.
And it's not, in my mind, it's not just parcel tax, and this will be for the board to decide. It's not just parcel tax renewal. It's an increase.
Yes.
It's not just $5 million in that out year. It's $8 million in that out year. We asked for 3. That's what we needed. That was kind of our lowest needed number. We didn't go out and ask for 10.
Right.
We asked for 3 more.
Right.
That's what we need.
But for me, that was the light bulb. And in you talking about, like, how do we talk about it? This is not, because I had been talking with people like, oh, what happens if we don't get a parcel tax? And the initial reaction is, well, we're going to have to make some really deep cuts. That's not the narrative if the parcel tax doesn't pass. There's no way, like you said, to cut $5 million and still function. So it's a different response of what happens if the parcel tax doesn't pass.
And I gotta say, the public, members of the public who are considering private school, but they can't pay more taxes. It's just beyond me. It's like, okay, so you're willing to drop $50,000 to $60,000 a year on a private school, but you're not gonna deal with a potential $800 increase per year on your taxes.
But it might not have been those families that were saying,
I'm just, you hear these things out there and you're like, oh.
I think any community member that's out there worried about the future of the district because of this dystopian conversation we're having, join us. Work with us.
Yeah.
We need to mobilize. We need to get on the optimistic side of the fence.
Yeah.
Let's lock arms and let's get this thing done.
Yeah. Well, I do want to shout out to people that have stepped forward and carried this incredible team. And I don't think this team is going to go anywhere. So the more the merrier, I'd say. So let's go out and do it again. Okay?
And Rachel's article in the IJ was great.
Wonderful.
Thank you for writing that. But how do we end? How do we go out and say, look, we've had to make $700,000 in cuts to the community, right? The parents are seeing this, but is that something that we want to communicate out to everybody? Saying, hey, or is that the dire straits, right? How do we balance that of great schools, everything's going in the right direction, and we've had to make some cuts for this next year?
Great other MIJ op-ed to write, Daniel.
Right. If you look at these two presentations back to back, or LCAP.
Yeah, right.
And all the amazing work that's being done in this district. So if I'm the parent and I'm thinking about what's the quality of the teaching and learning between the content, the teacher, and the student, 10 out of 10. It's excellent. And then this conversation around the budget is really challenging. So the quality of the district is there. It has not changed at all.
Right. Yeah.
We just need to solve this revenue issue, and we will.
And I mean, maybe to Peter's point, how much is Chris worth at children's parties?
That could be the big revenue generator right there.
That could be the thing.
$5 million question.
I mean,
the $5 million opportunity.
With a clown nose on though. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's.
I got you on the win.
All right then. And with that,
And on that note,
do we have any further discussion? All right.
No, Madam President.
All right, so the next item is recommended approval of bid award 242503 for the Hidden Valley Roofing Project to the lowest responsible bidder, State Roofing Systems, Inc., in the amount of $162,432.
So this is just the approval of the bid. We had gone out to bid for the Hidden Valley multipurpose room roof, and all of these bidders were on the mandatory job walk, and there were actually more potential bidders, but these were the ones that we actually received. And we have State Roofing Systems was the lowest of the 4 bids and is $162,432, and we recommend to the governing board of trustees that you do approve this bid so that we can do this work during the summer.
Any questions for Chris?
Sarah,
Nope, this was
guarantee,
expected. and-
warranty on this work?
It does end up with warranty and everything, so. And this was a formal bid, so it went through that full process.
Any more questions?
No, this is good. We did all the site walkthroughs. We know this is needed.
Do we have any public comment on this topic?
I reviewed, it's good.
No further public comment? Any discussion up here? No? I'll entertain a motion then.
So I recommend that we approve the bid for the Hidden Valley Roofing Project. The
Yeah.
lowest responsible bidder, State Roofing Systems.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Daniel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. Thank you, Chris. Next item is recommended approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2025-26 school year. Go ahead.
Yes, we actually brought this to the board last meeting, but apparently we used a form that the CTC does not like, and they would like us to use a different form, and that's what's attached here. But this is the declaration that allows us, in the event that we cannot find someone fully credentialed, that we can use some of those credential bridges that we've talked about in the past. And so, recommending that you approve the declaration of need that is on the correct form, so the CTC will accept it.
Can you stick this into those things that need to
Yeah,
not be done?
I was just gonna say, so we're revising forms for performative.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Thank you
Sorry.
for bringing this again, Julie. I'm sorry you had to retype it. So obnoxious.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment on this item? No? All right. Any discussion up here aside from the annoyance of having to redo this?
I'll make a
No?
motion that we approve the new form.
I will second that.
Great. Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. Thank you, Julia. Next item is receive for first reading revised updated board policy VP and administrative regulation AR in series 5000 students.
Just briefly, these are updated recommendations from CSBA with revised guidance and new laws that are reflected. So definitely some really good material, including some things around alcohol and drug safety and awareness, including a requirement that district informs the parent community early in the school year about the dangers of opioids, other synthetic drugs, etc. Dangers of social media platforms, advertising said products, and also important updates to how we manage student records, and also response to immigration enforcement.
Right. Do we have any questions for?
This observation, there's a lot of typos. I noticed when I read some of this, I don't know if it's a cut and paste formatting thing, but I want to go back, like, I think on one. It's like there's words that were together.
Just somewhere.
Yeah, maybe just do some formatting. I'm not gonna, it's not a showstopper, but just wanted to point it out.
Thank you.
It's one of my ticks.
Words that smash together.
Yes.
I figured this is the first reading and then they
It
bring
is.
it back, so.
Yeah, that's why I just wanna
Usually
make
it's
sure.
cleaned up when I see it next time, so.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
No words stuck. No words
No
stuck.
words stuck. District 2, I think, was a word I saw. So is this for all three?
These are there's however many there's 6 different ones that are recommended updates to current policies on the books.
So this is each one is a separate agenda item, so we'll do this 2 times.
Okay.
Any more questions? No. Any public comment on this? No. All right. Any discussion? No. All right. I'll entertain a motion on this.
Makes sense.
No need to vote now.
Oh, it's right.
We'll take the feedback on the formatting.
Okay.
We'll bring this back in consent for vote next meeting.
Lovely. All right. Yes, that's right. First readings. We don't have to vote. Okay. Next item is receive for first reading revised updated board policy BP and administrative regulation AR in Series 6000 instruction.
Me again, and really good stuff here, including some a change in language from students with disabilities to students with exceptional needs. And this year, last couple of years, we've seen some just language shifts, including in how things are officially documented in special ed plans. And then also new practice that we've already gotten started on this year, where rather than wait till 16 years of age, we're starting to develop transition goals starting at the end of 8th grade. And those are the goals that help guide high school students into what's coming after high school. So these reflect those different changes and new laws.
Any questions for Eric?
Eric, has there been any national move to change the wording from special ed? Kids really get bullied a lot for that.
We've talked about this in a number of different spaces in terms of how, language helps us, define something, right? But also it can create false buckets or categories, special education, general education, can be problematic, since all we're doing is working with students, and each student, no matter what kind of plan supports them, requires different kinds of supports, has different kinds of needs, different strengths, different areas of challenge. So, but on a national level, I'm not aware yet of any specific change movement for that terminology around special education.
Okay.
I had a similar question, but it's not on any of these revised things with the shift in the language from English language learners to multilingual learners. And I know that we've used it and I've appreciated seeing it in a lot of our presentations, but I don't know specifically which board policy and or administrative regulation it would fall under, but it's a similar type of question. I do believe I've seen that language shift, at least at the state level, in presentations. It seems like it's ripe for a policy shift but I don't know whether we have to wait for it to come down. I mean, most of the time we make these kinds of things when it's triggered by CSBA, but we're not precluded, are we, from making a change preemptively before then? So that might be another thing to look at. And it might be another thing, but special education, I think, though, might be a little bit more difficult with funding and stuff, and I don't know.
That's why I asked nationally, because you can change your own vernacular, but then it becomes an outlier for financial
and grants and stuff like that.
Well, it's slowly but surely, small can lead to big. Just in this past year, the eligibility category of emotional disturbance, one of the 13 ways that a child can qualify for special ed, is changed to emotional disability. So the history of language changes, even just in special education, I think, has been really indicative of like how, we're looking to use language as something that's uplifting instead of, pejorative in some cases.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this topic? No. Do we have any further discussion? Great. Anyone want to make a motion?
No motion needed.
Oh, right, no, I'm like, yes, okay, awesome. Okay, next one. Receive for first reading revised board bylaw BB in series 9000 board bylaws.
So 2 really quick ones. One that kind of shares a little bit more about the oath of office for when we do have a new board member, just straight CSBA language, so it's pretty straightforward. And then there's also legal protections for board members, and Chris and I talked about our insurance covers this, so both pretty straightforward.
Any questions here? Any public comments? All right, any discussion? Great.
If there's any feedback on number 7, 8, or 9 between now and next board meeting, send it our way. We'll make adjustments, and then it'll be on consent agenda next meeting.
Fantastic, thank you. Next item is recommended approval of the amendments to the superintendent's contract for the 2025-26 school year.
I'm actually going to do this one. So I want to talk about the contract real fast and just make sure that that the public understands that this is really, there's nothing material being added to this. It's just an extension of 2 additional years to Dr. Graff's contract. And so by approval of this item, it would allow that extension for 2 additional years and not increase his salary beyond what was already approved by the governing board with his preliminary contract. And so I don't know if there was anything else to add, Dr. Graff.
I think the move to a salary schedule is even more transparent than the 3% that was already in the contract. So I appreciate the consideration to be more transparent with the public. And I just want to say how much I've enjoyed working here. I appreciated our conversation around my evaluation at the last meeting. I've thought a lot about the feedback and will continue to think about it. And I'm excited to have an extension for 4 more years. I really enjoy working here. I love the people here. The parent community, the kids, the staff, the board. It's just a really, really special place to work. I feel honored to be tasked with this job. And I'm looking forward to 4 more years. Thank you.
So if we approve this, we lock you in.
That's a question or a comment.
It's an observation.
So Chris, just to clarify, we have in his contract from when we hired him initially that he has a 3% built-in thing. And so basically what we did is we just put this into a table so people could see easily.
Yes.
So it's not like we're having to hunt, people are having to calculate, it's the 30 year, so it should be this amount. It's like, here, just look at it. Okay.
This is exactly what was already approved, and it was built in at the time.
So technically, in my conversation with other superintendents, what we could have brought today is just a change in the term, and that's it. Because automatically there would have been a 3% increase anyways, because that was but because we changed it from the language of 3% to a salary schedule, that's an amendment to the contract. We need to be transparent with the community, so we bring this forward. So there could have been a world in which we just brought the term and that was it. And there still would have been the increase.
I appreciate the clarity.
And it's also moving to a confirmed 4-year because it was 3 + 1, I think, previously. So it's a 4-year contract starting July 1st.
Yep.
And then the other part of this is because it's now a salary schedule, we'll post it with the other certificated administrator salary schedule. So it'll be part of that.
And it's a common framework with the other ones as well.
Not every district does it, but
for us,
there are other local districts that do this. And it just is more transparency for the public. But again, it is not, as Rachel pointed out, it's not an increase in his salary.
Right.
Any other
No more questions.
Do you have any public comment on this item?
I just want to say that we appreciate it very much, and I'm really glad to hear the business, well, hopefully at least for you, but thank you for all the work. We're very happy to have you here.
Any other public comment? All right, any discussion up here on the board?
Nope. Appreciate the transparency and lock them in.
I was gonna say, I've probably worked with you most as anybody else on this board. I was so happy that one of the amendments that you wanted is to extend this longer. So thank you for that, and thank you for all your hard work. and just the fact that like you didn't like balk at putting this up here and putting this on a salary schedule, and knowing that there could be people who had feelings about it one way or another. And so I really appreciate that you were like, it might be really awkward for me to have this out in public so easily found, but also the fact that you value transparency so much that you really want this out here. So I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work. And with that, does anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Now she wants to make a motion
Now.
first.
It was simple.
I will make a motion to approve the proposed salary schedule for
Wait, no, it's
Contract
approved amendment.
Contract
Yeah.
amendments
to the superintendent's
contract amendment
Okay,
to the
make sure we
superintendent's
lock in
contract.
Lock and load.
That was second.
I'll second it.
Great. Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. Okay. And moving on, we have consent actions. If anybody has anything that they wanted to pull out or ask questions about, we can do that now. If not, I'll entertain a motion to move consent or not. Motion one way or another.
Anybody, Daniel?
I don't have any
I
comments.
will make. I will recommend that we approve all of the consent actions noted in section G, 1 and 2.
Second.
Chris.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. Okay, so consent has been moved. Board business, committee updates, reports from, and announcements by trustees.
I went to Brookside's annual 3rd grade wax museum today. If anyone in this room has never experienced it, it is a definite thing that one must do. These children stood up on their platforms. Some of them were posed like this, and you'd touch them and they'd say, "Hi, I'm Frida Kahlo." And they would proceed to tell you over 5 or 6 flashcards who they were, what they overcame, challenges, and why they chose to do that person. And I have to just commend Brookside that this is my 2nd wax museum, and I walk away in tears. So kudos to them.
Awesome. Shelley, Daniel?
The Golden Bell Award recipients was a week or 2 weeks ago. Exceptional. It was a great event. The MSA, the students, the high school students sang for about 25 minutes to start the ceremony. Yeah, it was great. It was really well done. So, congrats to our Ross Valley Award winners.
That's awesome. Let's see. I got to attend the Hidden Valley celebration lunch for the California Distinguished Award that they won, which is really just a really nice celebration. The district staff came in and helped cover like the yard where everybody else, like the kids were, and so they made sure that there was coverage so the teachers could all at one time sit and enjoy their celebration and kind of just be proud of with the work they've done.
Is this Brookside or
Hidden Valley?
Hidden Valley.
Yeah. Brookside was like 3 weeks ago. I attended the Parent Guardian Equity Task Force meeting, which was kind of a nice wrap up for the end of the year, just seeing all the work that they've done. I really loved the posters that are going to be coming up soon. It was nice to see them, and the people that have been working on that are just so lovely and so dedicated. And it was a nice end of the year meeting. And I got to attend the White Hill Middle School Advanced Ensemble's concert, which was their chorus, their orchestra, symphonic, and jazz band. So it's the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, and it was 7th and 8th grades, which was just really fun. It's so great to see what they can do when they've had music through their whole education, and the fact that Yes provides that for them has just been fantastic. And then I briefly stepped in on the 8th grade dance because I had to go do pickup, and then it was like dragging kids out with me. I'm like, okay, we gotta go. There's teachers here who need to go. But it was just fun. That they did a really cute job decorating with the parent club, and the kids were really into it. They had a Mamma Mia theme, which I was like, how are they gonna do it? But everybody was like color coordinated. It was amazing. I couldn't believe how the kids had done it, but it was a lot of fun. So that was all. And with that, we can move on to our next item of board business, which is the resignation of Trustee O'Neill and board discussion to fill the trustee vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this one, to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so there's kind of two things. There's one vote and then some direction. So you have a choice here to either appoint by going through an appointment process where we'd have applications, would do interviews, and you decide who the next board member is. You've done that before with current board members.
With mixed results.
Or we can go out for a special election. There would be fiscal impacts of a special election. We just went through a special election, so the board gets to decide tonight whether you'd like to go for another special election or do an appointment. Additionally, it'd be nice to have two people help in a committee to make sure we have the right timelines, the right interview questions, the application questions, just to review some of the work that we've done in the past. And I'd love to get a little bit of direction on timeline, because if the board did decide to go forward with appointment, we could make it happen as fast as the next board meeting, have interviews on the 25th, but I'd leave that all up to you.
But it makes zero sense to go out to a special election. So that's.
We have to ask questions first.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on a thought. Do we have any questions for Tyler?
Are there deadline considerations for either of those two scenarios that we need to?
If you do the appointment process, it's 60 days from the time of resignation. So we could do it at the next board meeting. We could also do it at the currently scheduled July board meeting, or we could do a special board meeting as well. So we've got options in there.
But it's within 60 days, which
Yep.
is what we had to do when Marie.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And did we? I think we did a special election for
Special board meeting.
Special board meeting.
Special, okay.
I think we did special. we've
Special,
not-
sorry.
we've not done
Yes,
special
no,
election.
sorry, I meant board meeting, special board meeting.
I think we did do a special
For the
board
interview.
meeting. And I think it would just depend on, I mean, can you wait and see what your response is and how many people you want to interview to know? Like, I don't know how you can schedule the timing at a regular board meeting if you don't. I mean, you could theoretically set, we're only going to interview the top 3 candidates and empower a subcommittee to choose who those are, or somehow having to figure that out to make this decision of, do you put it on a regular meeting or do a special meeting? It has to do with how much time you want to allocate for how many people you're going to be interviewing, which then gets to the process that we would go through. So, sorry to be a chicken and the egg type
I feel
thing.
like we didn't think about it this hard last time.
I don't think we had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork.
I think we just chose to do a special meeting.
I think a
right
special
after that.
meeting,
I think so too.
But
I mean, if we
could do it on the board. How much stuff?
Wait, sorry. Questions first.
Sorry.
Questions.
Roll. We're not discussing
We
questions.
can't discuss right now. Go to questions. Do you have any questions for Tyler about this? I guess we're kind of asking about time and stuff. But
Yeah, so in terms
Yeah.
of timeline, if the board made a decision tonight to move forward with an appointment, Teresa and I could tee up the process for a small committee, 2 members, to review and give feedback on. We could probably send something out to the community on Friday or Monday about the application process. We could give that to the 18th for people to submit applications, which would be a week and a half. And the application is, it's 10 questions that you write answers to. So you don't need like letters of recommendation and a resume and, to do a big performance task. And then we could hold on the 25th, we basically need to vote on the LCAP and the budget, which should be pretty quick because we just had public hearing tonight. And then you could interview the candidates. Or we could extend the amount of time we elicit applications and do a special in early July, or wait for our scheduled July board meeting.
What's the date of
let's
that?
just do the next meeting.
Yeah.
It's a short meeting anyway. This will be addition just to add on. Oh. The next meeting that's on the calendar is, like you said, a condensed meeting with just the voting for the LCAP and the budget that we've already seen and we've been able to digest. So that is essentially what we would call, it's a question, an in and out meeting, correct? So technically, would you think that we could have reasonable time to interview a pool of candidates like we did for the mistake we made over here with Daniel Cassidy and choose another trustee?
Yep, so you could, depending on how many people.
Nice Jeopardy. Nice
Depending on
Jeopardy.
how many people apply, you'd probably want to give about 15 to 20 minutes per applicant for you all to interview. And then there'd be some deliberation that would happen in public. And then there'd be a rank order document. And I looked at some other school districts and how they've done it. And you would rank order and make your decision right there. So deliberation could take another 40 minutes. So if there's 3 applicants, you're looking at an hour, and then another 40 minutes, 45 minutes for deliberation and making a decision. So
Assuming there's no
Would we
chairs
swear
around.
in that trustee that night?
you could.
Did we swear you in that?
No, it wasn't
It
official
wasn't.
for another month after. I
Like
can
you
go
came
back
to the
and look
next
at mine.
board meeting.
Yeah, I came to the next board meeting, but it was, hey, good job, you got it. But
We
like
made a decision
official,
that.
yeah, well,
we
they just
the
made a decision.
We took a vote and made
Yeah.
the decision.
And then it
So
was,
that's the
but
type of
that's,
direction that we could,
yeah, we would
if you
look at.
wanted to take that direction,
What do
we
you guys
could
think?
have that happen at the next meeting.
That makes this timeline and using the meeting on the 25th makes total sense.
I also think there's a lot of community engagement and
Yes.
involvement because we just went through the parcel
Right.
tax and there's a high level of awareness generally in the community
And
a
I can,
pool of
I would
people.
offer to help out too, since I just went through it, right, the questions and.
So, but we're not supposed to be, we're asking questions.
You're asking questions now.
Sorry, we're not good at following rules.
Yeah. And I'm tired, so I'm not enforcing them as much as I should. Sorry. Do you have any public comment on this item?
Sure. It's like
Oh,
You
you have to.
Do you wanna come up?
It's for the recording,
It's what records, yeah.
so they can record it.
we just heard everything about our budget, so from that perspective, I feel like it would be foolish to spend $183,000 on a special election of this kind, but I kind of sense that we're all on the same page in here, so let's just do it not the expensive route, please.
Do we have any other public comment? Okay. Now you can discuss. Go ahead.
Now we can talk.
No, I won't stop you.
I just want to say special gratitude, thank you to Trustee O'Neill for his years of service and being in the trenches and always being a direct and sound voice with experience for this district. And he's been missed and he will be missed. And I thank him very much for his service, his guidance, and his friendship on this board.
Yeah, I would add, I think one of the strengths that we've had as a board is having a variety of perspectives and viewpoints and experiences and professional skills, and Trustee O'Neill definitely, brought an additional often, and I also appreciate that whenever I talk to people about being on the board that we don't always agree, but we respect each other's areas of expertise and knowledge and perspectives, and so appreciate that.
Definitely agree with all of that. I think that he brought a very different perspective than what I come with, and so it was really helpful for me to hear what he had to say. A lot of times he would explain something to me from his perspective, and it would actually make me shift how I was seeing something. And I think it was really important to have that diversity of thought. And I really respect him, and I really appreciate all the work he's done for the district over the years, because he's been here a long time.
It's been a lot of years.
Yeah.
So
And I know his commitment to the district is longstanding, and he's only a phone call away when we need his perspective. So I think he'll be missed, and he'll be a phone call away.
So process-wise,
Process-wise,
we
I
need a vote
We
on.
decided no election. It's kind of
Yeah,
what
as I said, we need a formal vote on which directions. Somebody needs to make like a motion that we
take
do
action to fill
a
the vacancy.
nomination.
Doesn't say there needs action.
It says
does
action.
We do need
Yeah,
to
it says
vote on
action
this
and
one.
discussion. So so we need to vote.
So make a motion to follow an appointment process. Do we need to set the date and everything? I mean, is that the direction part of the date, or should we include all of that detail in a motion?
So the motion
So
would
we would
be,
do a bylaw 9223, section 1, right?
Yep.
We want to approve the process to be 9233, section 1, to fill the vacancy.
But that applies to both the way you do a special election and to do an appointment. So we basically need to read your recommended action at the top.
staff recommends the board discuss or take action to fill the vacancy through a provisional appointment.
Got it. So we would
Okay.
be approving the staff recommendation to fill the position through
Provisional.
right, okay.
Okay,
Want to make that motion, Chris?
why did you make that motion? Since it just came out of your
Just
mouth.
said it.
You just said it.
Then I make a motion for us to approve the staff recommendation to fill the current trustee vacancy by trustee O'Neill's resignation through provisional appointment. Why is it provisional? Well,
It would be provisional. And then the person would be sworn in and have 30 days for the public if they felt
That's
like
it, yeah.
we didn't follow the process,
That's
to
it, yeah.
file a petition with the requisite number of signatures to say
We didn't
we
do it.
disagree, and then would have to go back out and do something again.
thank you for that.
So we did swear you in. You were just provisional for the 30
You're
days?
provisional.
Yeah, it wasn't
Okay.
official, yeah.
So we can't
Sorry.
swear them in the same day. So
Sorry to interrupt your
to
motion.
restate the motion, I move that the board approve the staff's recommendation to fill the vacancy to replace trustee O'Neill with the option of a provisional appointment.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Great, Shelley.
Yeah, aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, so you have the direction you need?
But now we need to give the direction part of the thing of what
Yeah.
date and all that kind of
I've
thing.
got a good idea for direction. I think we should post this opening this Friday or Monday, the 9th. Have it close on the 18th and review the candidates at the next board meeting on the 25th.
You mean
Or
interview?
interview
Yeah.
candidates,
Yeah.
because we'll have the documentation on the 18th.
Now, how are we going to, what if it's a very large pool and we have to narrow it down?
The subcommittee has to do
Well, if
it.
it,
Will there be a subcommittee? Do we have to have a subcommittee now to do this?
Yeah, I'll do whatever help I need to do. I can be on a subcommittee
you just
to,
said yes. Okay, great.
yeah. So I can just work with Tyler and Teresa to manage that.
Okay.
And if we have more than 5
Can reasonably be
Candidates?
interviewed
Say
in
if we had more
an
than
evening.
5, we need to do a special meeting. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, if we have more than 5,
Yeah,
we would do a
okay.
special meeting
To choose the top.
to,
How
no,
many?
to,
The one, to make
I
the-
wonder if everybody should have the right to interview.
I think everybody should have the right to interview because that's what we do with you.
Okay,
With your group, sorry, your group.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right thing.
okay.
Okay,
The
because
questions-
otherwise we would have to empower the subcommittee with
Yeah,
decision
which
making
is not,
authority.
maybe not
which
as
is not
visible and, yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's,
Yeah, okay, all
I
right.
don't want
So
everyone
if
to
it's
be
more than, what would you just say, if it's more than five or more? Or
I'd say
more than
5. I'd say 5 or more because it's 20 minutes per.
Yeah.
5 or more?
Yeah.
So less, yeah, then we'll have to move it to a special meeting.
Well, we may still want to have it as a special meeting before our regular meeting because that way we could do that. We could do it earlier and then.
oh,
do-
sure.
Special
That makes
meeting
sense.
before the 20.
No,
No,
the-
like
the-
on the same day of the
Same
meeting that we
day.
already have
And it will
scheduled.
just be
Oh,
a
I
special
see.
meeting.
Yeah.
We can do that
Why
from
don't we
like 4 to
decide that when we
6.
see the applicant pool?
We should know more by the 18th.
Yeah,
once
I mean,
folks-
just-
it's,
Okay.
but it would be an option and it would be, I
Okay.
don't know, I just want to make sure there's enough time. I don't want to build it into an agenda that we may not have.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I'll just work with Tyler and Teresa and
Sounds like you have the
Do you
direction
want
you
to,
need.
do you want two trustees on that?
If someone else, I mean, you all have taken a lot on. If you want Daniel to do it alone, that's fine. If one more person wants to jump on, happy to have more.
You can call me if you need me. How's that?
Great.
All right. If you guys need
Okay,
another
it's
voice.
just-
I don't see why.
I mean, with our, we're gonna interview everybody. I
Yeah.
feel comfortable with you doing.
I think the only thing where Daniel will have potentially some thoughts are the application questions.
Yep.
We took a look at them earlier today. The last ones, there were some redundant ones, and I looked at another districts that they were a little more tailored to their mission vision. So we've made some provisional changes. Obviously, having Daniel approve those, we can also send those to everybody.
Okay.
And then the questions for the actual interview.
Well,
Each of those.
according last time, it was like word for word. Each trustee read each
Yes.
question word for word with the same.
Intonation and
Ah,
everything.
it was a very fun experience then. Respond, but yet you couldn't have any conversation.
Yep.
So,
That was the procedural.
yeah, that's
the thing,
so.
you
So there's really no interpretation of the questions. It's just question number one.
Yep.
Answer.
And we each took a
Fairness.
question so that we could say
Droll
it exactly
fairness.
the
Yeah.
same way every time.
So we'll have 4 interview questions.
Oh, we did more than that.
Or 8.
Did you?
We had, yeah, we each had
Two.
like at least 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it was
We could
3.
record them and
I feel like it was.
But why don't I work with you and Teresa tomorrow, see what you guys have, and then we can put this out to, hey, here's the 8 that we're recommending.
Great.
For the short answer and the questions that we're gonna ask.
I'm gonna throw a weird idea out here because it is. It won't be that weird because we only have
Let's
5
have a
minutes.
dance off?
No,
No?
but are we, because of what you just said of like we have to ask the same questions, and I was like, oh, push the button, ask the question. Is there anything that precludes us from just giving each candidate the list of questions and having them just go through it, just so we're expeditiously? My original thought was, could they make a recording of their answers, which
Oh,
is
that's
what
great.
you can do when you're hiring right now in regular hiring process. Lots of times you,
Oh, I don't-
but I backed off on that quickly in my thinking. But I was thinking, is there? Okay, I will go AI. Is there anything that could they just have? Here's the list of 8 questions, and each candidate reads a question.
No,
My answer to the question
It was
number
good to
1.
not know the questions before I came in. I had to respond with the whatever short answer questions about my
Okay.
thought. That was insightful.
Okay.
And then getting the list of questions here
Okay.
while
That's
you
your
guys
thing.
were asking me.
So
you
we're
all-
asking. So
yeah, that was
you're
the right
responding
thing.
on the fly,
Yeah.
kind of. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just
And if anyone wants to go back and listen to the recording, they'll know the questions. So I think changing them up a bit is a good idea.
Don't tell you, baby. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Carry
I
on.
don't know that we can all see the same document with the questions and make changes on it without being a brownout thing.
We could see them and
Send one direction.
Offer
send one
feedback
away.
directly
So we can do that. So we'll
It's
do it that
just
way.
feedback, and we have no idea what the final is.
Okay, yeah.
Then would you just send that back to me or back to Tyler?
Tyler.
Okay, yeah.
Just kind of make sure we're
Yep.
watching that. Okay.
That way we can't see each other's
Yeah.
feedback. And
That's right.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And moving on, approval of regular meeting minutes for May 21st, 2025.
You want to ask for a motion?
Yes.
I ask for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for May 21st, 2025.
You're making a motion. Not
I'm
asking.
making a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Wait a second.
I'll second it.
Great. Chris.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. All right. Superintendent cabinet report updates.
Parent Guardian Equity Task Force, really proud of that group. I think it ended on a positive note and with a lot of action taken. Golden Bell, great to see all the folks that won and get to clap for them and see them celebrated with their families. California Distinguished School Lunch at Hidden Valley, really a lot of thanks to Teresa and Lynn Marion for their work putting that together, and all the DO staff for volunteering to go play kickball and, take care of the students while the teachers enjoy lunch. And we've just been going through a lot of parcel tax debrief. So I've been reviewing the survey feedback data, which I will summarize for the board here in the next week or so. Had 163 responses to that. We met with Team Civics to review some of the data Rachel and I did earlier this week. We met with a Chamber of Commerce member from San Anselmo, and we'll be meeting with Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers next week. So a lot of debrief and reflection. And one of the things that really stuck out about our meeting with cost is that there were 3 special elections across the Bay Area, one in San Jose, one here, and then one in Akalani's high school district. All 3 of them were defeated. And Akalani's is where Team Civics, Charles Heath, he sends his children to Akalani's. So even with Team Civics deeply embedded in that district, they only outperformed us by 1 percentage point. They were 63.5, we were 62.5. So they really articulated that we outperformed what the expectation was. I know that doesn't make us feel better about a loss is a loss, but we really did outperform. And he was really saying that the economic, there's more complexities than just this, but the economic outlook across the country really had a big impact on all of these special elections. That's my thing.
Nothing further from me.
Nothing other than just thanking everyone for their tremendous work. ESY staff getting together for summer fun with at Brookside for 4 weeks. So the learning continues starting Monday after the school year's out. So big ups to those folks that are stepping up to do that. And 2 weeks ago, met with Lori O'Connor, the incoming director, for all day Student Services Festival of Transition, and it was great. We had a ton of fun. Just mapped people, systems, placements, did a little walking tour of our local non-publics. Just getting her connected up so that she can come in and just be, ready to go. So, and people have been super welcoming, and I know the team is really excited to meet her and get started working with her. So that'll be great. And Meredith, of course, just being the anchor, will be an amazing resource for her, along with, of course, the rest of the cabinet team and district staff. So excited for that.
Eric, when is your last meeting with us?
This potentially might be it. I still have to talk with Tyler about, cleaning up.
We can have you zoom in all year next year if you want.
There you go. I could come in on, just I could listen in, right? I mean, I'll be a member of the public, but likely it's the last. Given I'm just trying to figure out a little bit of time off before I start up.
Good luck. Good luck. And congratulations.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it very much. And thanks to all of you for your service. Ryan, who's not here tonight, but anybody that steps up to be a trustee or a staff member for 1 year, for 30 years, the service to the public is without, it's not quantifiable in terms of what it means for the children, the health of the community, and the children that we're nurturing now are going to become our community leaders down the road. At my new school, over the course of a couple initial visits, I've met 2 former students of mine who are now parents there. So and through the challenges, I appreciate everybody's focus on the children and the focus on being together through those challenges, which we know isn't the case everywhere. So I appreciate that. Appreciate that space that everyone here is creating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing this evening. You've heard me talk too much already.
Okay, let's see. Meeting review, future board topics, and board direction. Do you have anything we would like to?
I had raised something with Tyler because I wasn't sure if I was going to be here or not, but I think I would like to see, as we evaluate Tyler in the future, to do more of a 360 to get some feedback from principals. And perhaps you could do it anonymously if they'd like. But I think the more feedback you have, since you're so out there in the community, having that given to him will, I think, allow for a more well-rounded approach to evaluation.
Yeah.
Help us too. Is that okay? Can you consider that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something actually Kevin and I chatted about as we were kind of reflecting on the process. He's like, oh, you should send out a survey. And it was like the night before we were gonna do my evaluation, so it was a little late in the game, but I've done those surveys in the past as a principal and as a director to send out to the folks that report to me and the folks that I serve.
Yeah.
And I think it's all valuable feedback, and what I can do is I can take that and give you the raw data, or take that and summarize it and give you kind of the pluses and the deltas and the outliers, and we can talk about how that works.
It provides also, I mean, there's some AI generated ones which has a report that's written out after it takes all the data.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like I do those all the time at my job, and it says it's anonymous, and then at the end it says, what's your race? What's your age? What town do you work in? Are you gay, straight? And I'm thinking, oh, so you're gonna narrow this down. It's not really anonymous. But if people don't want to say who they are, then
Yeah, we can definitely make that anonymous.
All right. Any other future board topics? Direction? No? Great. We don't have to continue past 10:30, thank goodness. And at 10:02, I will adjourn. Sorry. Do we have a meeting debrief? Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate that. Meeting debrief. Thank you for Teresa.
No, good meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all. Long run.
Yeah.
And kept it.
Thanks to the public for being here this late.
Moved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Okay. I will adjourn us at 10:02.